morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment. Before we start, if I can please ask that everyone turn off their cell phones or put them on the silent feature, please. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is called to order. The committee considers applications for minor variances from provisions of the zoning bylaw and permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses and consent to create new lots. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I will vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications require more in-depth review. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda and ask if anyone other than the agent or the applicant is present in interest and wishes to address the committee. If there are people in interest, the matter will be held until all non-contested applications have been cleared from the agenda. If your item is held, we strongly advise you meet outside the hearing room and have a discussion with the other parties. If no person is present in interest, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation. If required, the committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. When addressing the committee, please come forward to the podium and clearly state your name and address. And anybody who would like is participating today or who would like a copy of the decision of the committee, there are forms at the end of the aisles here, and we ask that you please fill those in and hand them in to staff on the right, and that will ensure that you get a copy of the decision. If you have written submissions that you read from, please hand them to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer on my right once you're done. First, the applicant or the agent will make a presentation to the committee of the application as submitted. Then individuals either in support or opposition to the application will be allowed to speak. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points will not advance your cause. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker at the end of their submission. When all speakers are finished, the applicant has an opportunity to rebut only the related issues that were raised. The decision will then be taken into committee for the matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and that will mark the end of the discussion. And please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may file an appeal to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or TEY, and for more information about that body, you can visit their website or the Committee of Adjustment website. As I said, in order to receive a copy of the decision, please fill out a decision request form and make sure your email address is on there, because if the matter does go to TEY communicates with people via email. Okay, so before we begin, need to have confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll move adoption of the minutes.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor? So the minutes are approved. Any declarations of interest in this time slot?
No.
No, not at this time. Any files to be closed, Madam Deputy?
Through you, Madam Chair, not in this morning time slot.
Okay.
That I'm aware of. Okay. There might be somebody here who has.
Okay. And please note that the committee will not be entertaining extensive revisions to the proposal at the hearing today, just so that people are aware of that. Okay, so we're going to start vetting the agenda. So item number 1, agent or applicant. Item number 1, 100 Edward Street, agent or applicant. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay. Item number 2, 30 Rockvale Avenue, agent or applicant. Anyone in interest? Item number 3, 26 Carey Road, agent or applicant. Anyone in interest? Number 4, so there's people in interest, I'm sorry. So we'll hold that matter down, and if you please have a discussion outside the room. Item number 4, 232 Major Street, agent. Anyone in interest? 4 and 6, 232 and 234 Major Street. Anyone in interest? Okay, thank you. Item number 5, 15 Riverside Crescent. Thank you, agent or applicant. Anyone in interest? Okay, item number 7, 78 Glenrose Avenue, agent or applicant? Okay, thank you. Anyone in interest? Item number 8, 22 Chudleigh Road, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay, that matter will be stead down if you can go outside and have a discussion. Number 9, 231 Clinton Street, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay, again, that matter will be stood down. Item number 10, 991 Dovercourt, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay, okay. Again, that matter will be stood down. We suggest you go outside and have a discussion. Number 11, 34 Yarmouth Gardens, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Number 12, 31 Fairleigh, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 13, 2 Bridgeman Avenue, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Number 14, 397 Roxton Road, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay. Number 15, 87 Boulton Drive, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That matter will be stood down. Number 16, 142 Avenue Road, agent or applicant? Thank you. Anyone in interest? Okay. Number 17, 548 Palmerston Boulevard, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest?
Lady.
Okay, you could meet and have a discussion. Number 18, 27 Camberwell Road, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay, thank you. Number 19, 251 Bartlett Avenue, agent or applicant? Okay, anyone in interest? Number 20, 26 Churchill Avenue, agent or applicant? Anyone in interest? Okay, so for... Okay, the agent for 231 Clinton. Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, so the items being held in this time slot are number 326 Carey, number 822 Chudleigh, number 9 231 Clinton, number 10 981 Dovercourt, number 15 87 Boulton, number 17 548 Palmerston Boulevard. Okay, so we're going to start with item number 1, 100 Edward Street. Parties can please come forward.
It's like the for 26 Carey. They talk.
Are they still in the room? So for 26 Carey, are you going to go out of the side of the room and have a discussion? Okay, please, thank you. Okay, thank you. So just before we get started, the committee has before a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondent from the agent, email correspondence from the planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, senior engineer, development engineering, engineering and construction services, and a staff report from the director of community planning, Toronto and East York District.
Madam Chair, just that the people speaking inside, that they have to go outside because we can't hear you.
Okay, excuse us, please. Could you go outside and have your discussion? We need to get on with the agenda. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. For the record, could I have your name and address, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Alati, and I'm counsel to the applicant Smy Homes, who are a member of the conservatory group of companies. And with me today is my colleague, Mr. Jamie Cole, who just handed out some documents to you, which we're going to put up on the overhead screen while I go through my presentation. And as well, my client's architect and urban designer, Sal Vitiello of Richmond Architects. So, Madam Chair, we have handed up some handouts, and we have reviewed the planning staff report, which was dated April 10th and is in your files, and I believe you already made reference to. To be clear, I know that they indicate that they are not in support of the application, but they do also say that they are, if the committee should see fit to defer it, we are not interested in a deferral. An initial application for this property for variance was filed by my client in respect of these lands in March of 2015. Staff at the committee deemed the application incomplete because there was no site plan which accompanied that minor variance application. As a result, my client had to file an SPA, which they did in April of 2016, and subsequently a complementary second application was filed with this committee in May of 2018. The site plan application has already been appealed to the tribunal and the board for the hearing. My client also has appeals outstanding of OPA 352, bylaws 1106 and 1107, and those particular instruments actually came after my client's applications were filed in the first instance for variance with this committee. Likewise, with OPA 406, which was adopted again after our client's variance application was filed. And so that was prior to the lands being designated in OPA 406 as part of the Health Sciences District. We disagree with staff's recommendations that the application should be refused, and we urge the committee to review the application and approve it. It's a submission on behalf of our client that the variances both individually and cumulatively meet the 4 tests. And if you look at the list of variances, they look rather long, but there are a number that overlap because we're dealing with both bylaws. The site is actually in part in bylaw 438 and part in 569, but nevertheless, the way the city's review is undertaken, the review is underdone under both bylaws. What I wanted to do is just let you know that at the outset, it's my respectful submission that the proposed development respects and acknowledges the pattern of development which exists on the ground in the area and which has and continues to evolve in this part of the city, in this area of Bay Street. In terms of height, penetration, angular plane, floor space index, GFA, tower separations, building setbacks, the provision of the amenity space and the location of the bike parking, I'm prepared to tell you and demonstrate that the proposed variances are well within the range of approvals which have been granted and already exist in the area on the ground. In the interest of time, what I'm going to try to do is group together all of those variances that relate to height and relate to GFA and FSI and density. And then I'm going to quickly address some of the other variances from staff related to tower separations, amenity space, the bike parking, and the number of units. And to the extent that time permits, even though the staff report doesn't deal with them, I'll briefly touch on the other variances like the main wall locations and the setbacks of walls with windows. And in my view, those are very much akin to technical variances. In terms of the density, FSI, and GFA variances, there's a total of 6 variances related to FSI, GFA, and density. Variance 1 on your list under bylaw 569 is the density for building B at 70 Edwards Street. And if you look on the overhead, which is the first package I gave you, you can see the proposed development highlighted in sort of the gray text in the gray shading. Variance 3 under 438 deals with the density for building B, both the combined non-residential and residential, and variance 7 under bylaw 438 is seeking a variance to the permitted combined non-residential and residential gross floor area as well. And in terms of the request in variance 1, 7, and the other one I just mentioned, there's an FSI request of 8.98 times the area of the lot for that building, and there's additional GFA being sought for building A. I draw your committee's attention to the second handout I gave you, and you can see that in the last 6 years, and we've put the addresses on these, at 175 Elizabeth, which is over on the left side of your page, above where our client site is highlighted in green. That was approved with a density of 19.6 times. At 695 Bay, which is also marked on that map, which is on the overhead, that received a density of 20.85, and 700 Bay Street obtained a density of 19.08. And if you look at what my client is seeking at 8.98, it's well below each of those densities which exist, and were, just for the record, either supported by this staff at the city or were achieved by a way of a settlement with the city before the then Ontario Municipal Board. My client's property is in the heart of the downtown, and the proposed density increase is meeting the intent of the growth-oriented OEPA policies, and it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. If you look at variance 2, under bylaw 569, we request a floor space index equal to 8.57 times. Similarly, with variance 4 under bylaw 438 and variance 8, there's residential density increases being sought. And I'd point out that similar to the circumstance that I just explained with height, in terms of combined densities, likewise with the residential density being requested, this is well below the residential densities which have approved and been built. At 695 Bay, city staff supported an FSI of 20.55, which is more than 2 times what my client is seeking. And as I also mentioned in my opening comments, OPA 406, which restricts restricts residential uses above the as-of-right zoning in the Health Sciences District. It was actually approved after the submission was originally made to the C of A.
So we're now at 6 minutes, so.
Nope, and shouldn't be accorded any weight. I'll skip quickly to the height variances. And Madam Chair, just for reference, there's 4 variances related to height. Variance 6 under 569, 1 and 2, and 10 under 438. They all deal with height and the penetration of the angular plane. And with respect to those variances, the proposed height being sought, for example, at 22 stories, 72.25 meters for Building B, as opposed to 61, well below some of the heights. And if you look again at the example on the chart, you can see that 686 Bay was approved for, it's 115.7 on the map that I have listed. It's actually, they were approved for 118. Bay Street, number 700, received approvals for 89.7 and 125 on the unbuilt portion. And 695 Bay Street got an approval for a height of over 135 meters. I think it's noted as 141 on that particular schedule which we've put up. Likewise for Building A, and in terms of the angular plane, if you look, that's in variance 1 to bylaw 438, and what I point out is that in the new bylaw 569, those angular plane provisions of 60 degrees haven't even been carried over, and the reason for that is, in my view, those provisions weren't carried over because they are outdated, they're not best practices, and they aren't consistent with the type of built form typology which is found on the ground and now existing in the pattern in the neighborhood. There was another slide that went up momentarily that dealt with the height in the context of the helicopter.
We can wrap up.
Okay, and you'll see, Madam Chair, just if you take a quick look at that, both the buildings and the structures, the construction structures which would be required, are well below the flight paths. So there is no issue. I know staff has also raised a number of other concerns in respect to amenity space. We actually meet the total amount of outdoor amenity space. It's effectively a technical variance. The problem is the buildings are being treated separately, so there's a shortage when you look at it that way, but not when they're combined. I don't have time to go into the others, but I can tell you in terms of the tower separations and the setbacks, like the height and variances, these particular variances are well within keeping of the separations that are found, and there's a schedule there that shows you some of the separation distances, 17.8, and the others on the left side of the page up now, well within what's been approved. So in conclusion, I've had a chance to just briefly review for you the variances requested by my client individually and collectively satisfy the 4 tests. They represent appropriate and modest intensification in the context of what's on the ground. Staff's recommendation of refusal in my respective submission is confusing and surprising in light of the history of what has been sought, supported by staff, approved, and what exists in this particular neighborhood. So, Madam Chair, subject to questions for me or for my client's urban designer, those are my submissions.
Thank you. Questions, panel members?
Yeah, I would start with asking you, the first question is, how many other buildings from within the area do penetrate the 60 degrees angular plane? How many other buildings before?
In terms of the buildings that exist now, I can't tell you which of them do, but there are some because of the height that are. Well,
you said you had, so you should be able to tell us exactly what they
No, what I said was that that particular reference comes from bylaw 438. It wasn't carried forward in bylaw 569, and it's outdated. And for that reason, we don't place a lot of stock on that variance, nor do we think that the city does any longer, or they would have carried it forward in bylaw 569, which they didn't do.
Okay, so you had no answer for that one. Now, with regard, why are you providing only 9% of bicycle parking space?
Actually, we meet the bicycle parking. What we're doing is we're putting it on the second floor because it's closer to the elevators, and the ramp is very steep. It exceeds what the typical grade would be for people to get a bike up and down. So by putting them, the majority or the balance of them on the second floor, we're actually closer to the elevator cores, and people will have more proximate and quicker access to the ground floor level. So despite the bylaw requirement to have a certain percentage on the first level of underground, it makes more sense in this instance to have some on the second floor because they're actually going to be closer for people to get to the outdoor area because of the nature of the grade of the ramps going down. They won't be taking their bikes there, they'll be taking the elevators.
So,
with
so
bikes.
your suggestion here in your application is contrary to the bylaw set out, the bicycle space?
No, in our view, it meets the spirit and intent of the bylaw, because the spirit and intent of the bylaw is to ensure that people with bicycles will have quick, easy, and proximate access to the ground floor level. That's why they typically want them on the first level below grade. In this instance, if we were to do that, we would lose parking, and we would be putting bike parking in a place that's actually inconvenient and wouldn't be used or utilized to its proper extent, because people are going to be taking the elevator. They're not going to be driving down the ramp on their bikes.
And the 438 of 86, the dwelling units, you seem to have gone contrary to the requirement of the bylaw in that you're seeking 204 dwelling units on when the bylaw says you only allowed 165.
Yeah, well, there's two reasons for that. One is there's some additional height and density being provided for in these buildings, which accounts for some of the units. That bylaw was actually amended in 1988, so it's from a standard in a time when the unit sizes were larger as a result of the increase in the number of floors, as well as the increase in the decrease in the size of the units. We resultingly have fewer units, or a greater number of units, rather than fewer larger units, which was what was proposed in 1988 when larger units were being built in the downtown.
Did you consider making the application to zoning instead of coming to this committee?
Well, what we've done is we've appealed bylaws 1106 and 1107. We have an appeal of bylaw 569 outstanding. And when we first came to this committee, for example, we had the appeal of bylaw 569, but 1106 and 1107 weren't there. We'd been dealing with staff on a site plan basis, and for that reason it made sense to proceed by way of variance rather than a zoning appeal, because we've appealed the parent bylaws that affect these sites otherwise.
And the site plan's been appealed?
Site plan has been appealed as well. And so is the fees for the processing of the site plan. And, yeah. So we have other outstanding appeals. And our appeal of 1106 and 1107 and OPA 352, the downtown core matters, that's a site-specific appeal. We've been moved into, I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on at the board, but there's a category C where they're dealing with appeals on a site-specific basis, and ours is on that basis as well.
Thank you.
So from the variance number 3 and variance number 4 with respect to the setbacks.
Setbacks?
So could you just go over that again, please?
Yeah, from our perspective, the setbacks which are being sought, particularly as a result of bylaws 1106 and 1107, which now impose, which are appealed, you know, those reflect a sort of a one-size-fits-all approach in terms of the setbacks. If you look at some of the examples we've shown, you know, even with the variances we're seeking, there's still an 18.76 meter separation distance across the lane to the adjacent building, which is the closest building. And that's consistent with reduced tower separation distances approved in the area. And it, in our view, well exceeds the separation distance in the underlying zoning. You know, primary concerns are limited, as there are no private primary windows facing the lane. So that's one of the reasons why you'll see with respect to, I think it was number 3 you mentioned specifically, where we have a 9.47 meter setback instead of 12.5 meters from the center of the lane.
Could you speak to the amenity space, please? Why are you not able to provide the required 644 square meters? It's new construction and
Yep.
big building.
Yep, I understand. Let me just find my note on that. But in terms of the amenity space, we actually meet the amenity space. In my view, it's a technical variance because the mixed-use condominium building will have 621.2 square meters of indoor amenity space. And as you pointed out, there's 644. But both buildings are connected above and below grade, and the amenity space is shared between the residents of both buildings, and combined, when you combine them, even though they're being treated as separate buildings and towers for the purposes of the variances, both buildings meet the indoor and outdoor amenity requirements. So if these buildings were to proceed under a single building permit, we wouldn't even require these variances. But because we have to go by way of more than one permit, the variances are triggered.
Okay, the other question, again, back to the flight path. You say you don't impede the flight path, however, staff says there are issues identified, they don't specify, so what are the problems left with?
Yeah, and we don't understand that. I know staff is still, for example, looking at things like the view corridor to City Hall. Those criteria haven't been finally established. The work we've done demonstrates that we are well below the flight path. If you look at the map that's on over your right shoulder, both in terms of the height of the building and the structures. So we disagree with staff, and that schematic demonstrates that we are well within the range of the flight path and don't impinge it.
How many appeals do you have on your site plan going on at the present moment?
I'm sorry?
How many appeals do you have on your site plan going on at the present?
There's one site plan appeal and an appeal of the actual, there's a fees appeal related to the filing of the site plan because we weren't of the view that we needed a site plan to proceed with the variances, but we nevertheless filed one. And the fees appeal relates to the requirement to file it in order to have our variances applications deemed complete and heard by this committee. The site plan appeal was filed at the same time. And it's just the one appeal.
And, sorry, and also in terms of the one-bedroom units, 171 versus 19?
Yeah, and we're responding to market conditions. I mean, as I pointed out, there was a site-specific amendment approved by the OMB for this property back in I believe it was 1998, and that's where the unit count and the unit mix was established at that time. And it's just not relevant in today's market, particularly in this downtown core neighborhood.
Has planning staff given you any understanding of their concerns with respect to the heritage views of City Hall and what would be a remediation that would address their concerns?
No, and in fact, the criteria for the heritage views have not been finally established. And I didn't have these discussions personally, so I can only tell you that when our planner, who's out of the country right now, had discussions with staff, because of the fact that those criteria have been changing, there was a second look at this, and they indicated that they didn't believe it was a problem. I didn't see that make its way into the planning staff report, but I do know that based on the work we've done, and in fact, some of the other buildings that are in between us and City Hall, like the Sick Kids Tower, which if you come in off Nathan Phillips Square, you can see it behind, they would already impair the ability or block the view irrespective of what happens on our client's site. So we're a little bit perplexed as to why they raised that as an ongoing concern, particularly when the criteria have not been established. The actual angle of view corridor has been shifting based on what we've seen. We did provide input to that process, but I know that process hasn't been finalized by city planning staff, so I think their comment reflects more the fact that they haven't determined what they are going to establish for view corridor parameters, as opposed to our building being a problem and impinging.
So your submission with respect to the planning's concern with respect to loading ingress and egress on the city-owned lane is, you still feel that it's sufficient?
We do. And one of the items we've been dealing with on a more global basis in our appeal of bylaw 569, which, as you're aware, is before the Ontario Municipal Board now and has been subject to a number of phases, has to do with access from a lane and parking. And those portions of the bylaw have not yet been dealt with in the global hearing. I think we're at phase 4 of bylaw 569. I've been to 3 of the 4 phases so far.
Do you have any examples where setbacks to a city-owned lane area have been similar to what you're requesting? And that
I don't have any that I established for you on any of the graphics that I brought forward, but it's not atypical for what we are seeking to have found in other parts of this neighborhood. That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Committee members, any further questions? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that the agent has addressed a lot of our questions. However, I still have some concerns. The staff report also indicates that the applicant was advised in November that there were still issues with respect to the second submissions that were circulated. I'm not 100% convinced with respect to the flight path. So I have concerns with this application with respect to the number of variances, the flight path, and as well as the angular plane. It's new construction, and I think that more of an effort could be made to minimize variances and to try to comply as much as possible.
I echo what many things that my colleague said. I see their appeals and other issues outstanding. Many issues here are based upon the agent's position as to what he feels is best, but really contrary to what's going on, and that's why we have many appeals going on. He's responding to market conditions, as he said, but he's not. But we have to deal with what we have in the four tests. Heritage is an issue. The angular plane is an issue. City portion and the egress of the development as it stands with city development continues to be an issue. I really have lots of problems with this application. It's quite a large application. I think it's excessive, and I don't believe it meets the four tests.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move refusal of the application as for the reasons stated previously, as well as by my colleagues, and that it does not meet the four tests.
I second that.
It's a motion by Ms. Ullman, seconded by Mr. Russell, for refusal of the application. All in favor? The application's been refused. Thank you. Item number 2, 30 Rockvale Avenue. While you're getting settled, I'll just say the committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plans, floor plans, and elevations, email correspondence from the Assistant Planner, Community Planning, City Planning, North York District, staff reports from the Director of Community Planning, North York District Manager, Permits and Enforcement, Parking, Transportation Services, and the Acting Supervisor of Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry. If we could have your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Glenn Rubinoff. I'm the agent for the owner on this application, 30 Rockvale Avenue. Okay. If I could give you a couple of handouts.
Sure. Panel members, do you need a presentation or proceed to questions?
Questions.
But please hand out what you've got, but we'll proceed with questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So questions, panel members?
Yeah, Mr. Rubinoff, I'm just going to give you an opportunity to respond to what are you trying to show us on these two. And the first one is the one with the streets here and
the park. So if I might just briefly go over this. This is an existing home that's been vacant for a couple of years. It's in very, very poor condition. My client spoke with all the neighbors who are happy to see it removed. It's not livable. There's structural damage. It's basically no one's been in it for a couple of years. So my client has come forward with a proposal to do a new house on the property. There were two items that came forward, one from transportation with regards to the front yard parking pad request. The purpose of my sketch, the one with the orange marks on it, the other sheet, the photo, is to illustrate all the homes that have front pad parking in the area. And if you look at the photo on the wall, on the screen as well, that's the existing condition As you can see, the neighbor immediately, there's a right-of-way, the curb cut is right there. The actual difference between what we're requesting versus what's existing is that little orange line. So basically, the existing curb cut pretty much goes exactly where we need it to go. It's about a foot difference of what the request is. So there's no impact in terms of area parking for anybody. It's an existing situation in this neighborhood that people park in their front yards. And this is, this application will be made, and I don't believe it would be any major impact to the neighborhood whatsoever. But I did want to illustrate that there are a lot of existing front yard pads.
Where rear yard is available?
The rear yard right now, the existing home has a big double garage.
Where rear, there's existing front parking, where rear yard is possible?
Yes, there is. Yeah. Now, their comments were not, they were saying, well, you will have to apply for front yard parking. They didn't, their comments were not, what I read into them were that, if I might say, the applicant is to submit to request a zero parking variance where no parking space will be provided, which is what we're proposing.
And they're suggesting it would be.
They're suggesting
it would be refused.
Right, due to the existence of on-street parking being on the opposite side and undersubscribed. Now, like I said, we're not affecting any parking as a result of the existing curb cuts that's right there. And that's my point, is that it's feasible and it's part of the character of the area that people are parking in front of their home rather than going along the side. The existing curb cut is there. We're not, the difference is minimal. So their argument of on-street parking on the opposite side, it almost sounds more like a party line than actually looking at the situation.
Transportation's also saying that an application would be refused.
Yeah,
For a parking pad in the report.
It says here, approval of the front yard will be conditioned.
No, it says here, however, any application would be refused due to the existence of an on-street parking permit being on the opposite
Yeah,
side.
generally
Right, in other words, you could do an on-street one, but not the parking pad.
Yeah,
Have to be appealable to community council.
basically, the way I understand it is that's an automatic refusal because there's parking across the street, and that is an appeal process through the off-street parking. But they're saying that they can't approve it without going through appeal process. That's what they're saying, and it's a year-long process.
Okay.
What about planning's conditions?
Now, planning's concern is regarding the wall height. The only variance that they had a concern with was the wall height. They mentioned a height in the area, and no one's gotten approval for any more than that. I've indicated to you on this map that I provided that there actually have been several wall height grants in the area, but we do overall height is 11 meters there, and we are compliant with the overall height. It's just simply the matter of the style of the home. That's the reason for the request. And it's for the partial third floor. It's not for the whole building.
So the closest sidewall height is Rabina? No, on Rabina? In terms of the subject property?
There's one on Rabina, yeah.
So not
Outer.
not on
Rockvale is a very short street. It's only it runs between Hanson and Rogers, but there's really not. It's not a big street, but Louder Street, there's one approved. I'm just saying that this is an area where it's a style of the home is the reason for the request. But like I said, we've spoken with all the neighbors. None of them have any concerns regarding the proposed development going on the site. It is an older neighborhood, and the proposed wall height is related to the partial third floor, the actual number is taken to the top of a little trim piece on top of the back part. So the actual height is at 10.99 to the underside of this trim piece, and then, but they've taken it to the top of that little trim piece at the back corner there. So, you know, while I understand their concerns, and I understand the concerns from transportation, I feel that this is a redevelopment which is in keeping with what's, you know, what the new zoning bylaw has put forward, and the neighborhood. We've consulted with the neighbors. There are a lot of people have seen this house sitting there empty for a couple of years, and it's not really livable, and they're all anticipating that this would go forward. And you know, we do understand the concerns expressed about front pad parking, but that's really the character of this neighborhood, and there are many homes that have it without, with right-of-ways that are either narrow or not quite, feasible. The next-door neighbor has a fence going across the right-of-way. They park in front. And like I said, we're not changing we're not adding a whole curb and taking away parking. We're just working with the existing.
Is there many other three-story homes?
There are, yes.
Area?
There are. There's, I believe, let me just see if I can, I do have some photos I can put up if that, wait one moment here.
Anything on Rockvale itself?
Cedric, where's that?
Oh, way over here. That's not really close by.
No, this is on Rabina. 254 Rabina. You can see the one there. This is on Hanson. Hanson is just at the end of the street.
On top, yeah.
There's another couple on Hanson as well. Home. And I will point out there is one on Rockvale.
What number Rockvale?
That's number 1 Rockvale.
At the bottom, okay.
And the size of the platform, that's awfully in excess of what the bylaw provides.
Planning didn't comment. They weren't concerned about that. That was not one of the things that they had brought up. I do.
understand that. I'm asking you.
But in terms of privacy, I mean, it's, there is a view towards downtown, and I think it was something that my client looked at as an opportunity just to have some private space to enjoy that.
Any other questions, panel members?
And like I said, the neighbors have been supportive. They're an older population. They're not, they didn't want to give their written submissions, but they were happy to see something new happening there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Moving off, we're in committee, discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, through you, I want to say that I'm not very happy with this application. In particular, we have issues with the curb cut. We have issues with the parking. We have issues with regards to the permitted height. We have issues with regards to the platform. This committee has issues with regard to the platform. So I'm having some difficulty that I thought maybe one of the things that the applicant could have done is that they could have dealt with those issues before coming to this committee. So I'm not prepared at this time I'm not comfortable with the application at this time.
Through you, Madam Chair, although again some good arguments were brought forward, I do note the concerns by planning. This is new construction, and although I'm sure it's an improvement on what it sounds like a derelict property, which would be a rejuvenation, this is also an opportunity to adhere closer to the bylaws. I do note that there is screening provided on the platform, which is quite large. It's more than 4 times the permitted size. So I do have some concerns about this application as a whole.
Motion?
Madam Chair, move a motion for refusal of this application in that it fails to meet the 4 tests and the characters of this as set out in planning does not meet characterization that we should be approving under section 54 of the Municipal Act.
Seconder? Okay. So there's a motion to refuse the application. All in favor? The application's refused. Okay, we're going to deal with items number 4 and number 6 now, which is 232 Major Street and 234 Major Street. Could the agent or applicant please come forward? So just as you're getting settled, let you know the committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence from, on number 4, correspondence from 217 Brunswick Avenue in opposition, and then also a letter of continued concern or interest. And on 234 Major, in addition to that, a staff report from Acting Supervisor, Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry. Could we have your name, please, and address?
My name is Tony Zhang, applicant.
Okay.
The applicant.
Thank you. Committee members, do we need a presentation or just wish to proceed to questions?
No
I
questions.
think we'll proceed to questions then. Then questions, committee members?
I just have some questions about the landscaping in the front. Are you making any improvement to it, or is it staying the same?
Yes, stays the same because I think there's a misunderstanding from the neighborhood. We talk with them. We have a meeting together. They have no problem, but they said the only thing that's on the city property, we cannot change anything. We just follow city by law. Yeah.
And on the city boulevard, there is some grass, or what's there now?
Yeah, we have only there's a basement workout. We have to need a pavement down there, and then that's all.
So there is soft landscaping on the city portion of the frontage?
Yeah, they will keep as much as possible.
Are you able to use permeable pavers for the stairs going to the steps?
Permeable pavers?
Pavers, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So if we put that as a condition, if we decide to approve this,
Yeah,
you would be okay with that?
Yeah.
So just for clarification, you have some existing landscaping there, is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Approximately what percentage of your landscaping is existing at present moment?
There right now it's about 40 square feet, 20 square feet, 20 square feet, 20.
On your property or on city
Yeah,
property?
on the current property.
On your
Yes,
property.
private property.
Then why are we so you're going to be reducing that?
No. Yeah, we are going to reduce. The only, the situation in this property is very special. The situation is the property line is only 2 feet in front of the main wall, because we are going to build a walkout along. That's there's just no other way to avoid.
I'm trying to get around the 0% of front landscaping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right on the property line.
it's right in,
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you have there?
That's,
Nothing.
Nothing. It's only the city property that's got soft landscape.
yeah. The zero, that means that the private property is not on city property.
Which is all-
Okay. What about permeable?
That's what,
Yeah.
we're talking about permeable pavers. Okay. Any other questions?
No other questions for me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're in committee.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that what's being proposed is not unreasonable in this case. The front porch is being reconstructed. The existing softscape that's on the city property remains as is. The applicant is amenable to putting in permeable pavers. I would be prepared, if there are no other comments, to move approval of this application with the condition that all pedestrian access be permeable pavers.
So that would be for item number.
For item,
232
for
and
both,
234.
yes. And then on item number 6, there's also forestry condition number 1.
Okay. Do you have a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'll have a second. So you be very clear, there's no forest condition in item number 4, but only on item number 6. And permeable pavers
It's on both.
on both.
Okay, so that's a motion to approve with the condition of permeable pavers for both addresses and subject to forestry condition number 1 on 234 Major Street. All in favor? Your application's approved with those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5. Yes.
Item 9, the applicant has consented to a deferral, and we thought if we could deal with that now, all of us could leave.
I think you'll have to wait till we get to that item, please.
Thank you.
Number 5, 15 Riverside Crescent.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Vermeulen. I am representing the agent, 16 Degree Studio.
Hold on a moment, just while I note what's before the committee. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Etobicoke York District, planner, ravine and natural feature protection, urban forestry, and the planner, Toronto Region Conservation Authority, and a staff report from the supervisor, ravine and natural features protection, urban forestry. Your name, please, thank you.
Stephanie Vermeulen.
Do we need a presentation or just proceed to questions? Okay. Any questions? Any questions?
Miss Stephanie, you're on a area that is subjected to heritage situation. Can you explain how you're dealing with that?
Heritage?
Five.
No,
There's no heritage.
there's no heritage that
That's
is.
applicable, okay. Okay, then there's one question.
TRCA, they have no objection.
TRC have no objections, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Can we, in committee, for motion, discussion or motion, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, if there are no further comments, this is a very straightforward and extremely minor variance application, so I would move approval as it meets the floor test.
A seconder?
Seconded.
Okay, motion for approval. All in favor? Application's approved. Item number 7, 78 Glenrose Avenue. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, form letter in support signed by the owners or occupants of 88 Glenrose Avenue. We have your name, sir, and address.
Sure. I am Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated.
Thank you.
Please sit, gentlemen. I'm here with my clients, Ms. Rolla.
Is he-
Oh, that you don't want them here? Oh, that's opposition now.
That's okay, you're there.
Yeah, they're okay
It's
now.
okay. It's okay,
I
they
beg
can
your
sit
pardon.
there.
Is that changed?
No opposition here.
Always been that way.
Yeah, they're not opposition, we know
All
that.
right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Panel members, do we need a presentation or proceed to questions?
Questions if there are.
Okay, proceed to questions. Any questions?
I have no questions.
Mr. Higgins, on your floor space index, it's moving from what's there presently?
What's there presently is a single-family home that is in the 60% range. Without having the third floor, we would be at 68%. And while we are on the high side at 0.838, just three doors away, at number 88 Glenrose, the committee approved and then went to OMB for a third floor that brought them up into the 90s, well into the 90s. And another one around the corner from that on Mount Pleasant within about 50 meters from this property was also in the 95 range.
No, you're looking at a depth. It's moving a depth of to 18.4 meters. That's more than what the bylaw requires. And how is this depth not interfering with the privacy of the other parties on Clifton Road and?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to answer that. I wasn't making a presentation, but I can make a little bit of one now. The committee should know that we hand-delivered 18 packages of information to all of the immediate neighbors. We received 4 letters of no objection. I'm to hand these in, if I may.
Yeah, we had received one.
You received one. We tried to put these in yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
This is the area here that we canvassed. We met with the Residents Association twice in my office. We know each other well from many times back and forth. I met with the planner, Robert Orsini, and we met with all of the neighbors along Clifton Road, mostly because of a large tree. And you can see that large tree in our drawing here. At this point, very large silver maple tree that we have addressed on a number of occasions with arborists and discussions with the neighbors' arborists as well as our own. We've removed the basement in that area. We have removed the basement in that area to minimize the injury to the tree, and that neighbor has accepted it. So we've had a lot of conversation with the neighbors about the proposal. None of them have once talked about length or depth. I should say to you that we have a fairly strong setback at the rear, wherein the allowable depth is met with the second floor, and then the third floor is back another 7 meters. So it's only the one story that is at variance to the depth.
Okay.
And that would be shown on the side elevation. See it here. Side elevation. You can see that's the portion that is in excess of the depth is only this little bit. And the second floor sets back, and the third floor sets back further. Done that intentionally, plus green roofs, in negotiations with the planner, the community planner, as well as the Residents Association, to minimize what could be a more daunting proposal, I would say. And I'm really happy I thought going into this we'd have, because we have so many Clifton Road neighbors, we'd have a lot of issues, and we do not. Not only do we have those 4 letters, but we've also had correspondence with 2 of the neighbors on Clifton Road, one of them with the big tree, and they are, although they haven't submitted letters of support, they have said that they will not oppose. But we think we're in decent shape there.
All right, thank you. Now, on your front yard,
Yes, sir.
how many other units on the street or in the area have moved their front yard setback to 3.97 meters? You're going at 50% of what is required by the bylaw.
That's correct. If you look at the site plan, and I'm sorry, but if I had been doing my presentation, I would have handed these. May I approach?
Certainly.
Because it might be easier to look at a colored version, if I may.
Thank you.
So you will see there that the front yard setback of the neighbor on Clifton Road has a setback of 1.1 meters. We have taken the average of the setback of that home with the neighbor immediately to our east, number 80, and in consultation with both of those neighbors, particularly with number 80, who is one of the letters of support, it was determined that in order to park on this property, and on the site plan it shows that there are a lot of large city trees that we can't touch. There's no room to park in the front. The neighbors didn't want to have a raised main floor with a integral parking, so we're parking at the very back of the property. And that's meant about a year of negotiation with number 80, who was willing from the beginning, but we had to get him to agree to extend the mutual right-of-way that would allow us to turn past the building and go into the backyard. You can see where the garage is at the back with the permeable paving. And to date, everybody seems to be fine with that. It's resulted in a thinner but longer building, hence some of the length and depth issues. And it was determined that if we pulled the house forward to where the existing front porch was, it's a very large covered terrace, that would be basically the midpoint between the house to the west and the house to the east. So I don't know if you've been able to make a site visit. So this is the neighbor in support here at number 80. This is us at 78. And then this is a large 3-story house on Clifton Road on the corner. So it's the balance between, or the average between those two front yard setbacks that the neighborhood has agreed to as minimizing the amount of house in the backyard. You can see on your site plan that the house 2 doors away at number 84 is a huge long house with a front garage, and it very much blocks the neighbor at number 80. Now, you might say, is that of a concern? Well, because Mount Pleasant is only about 30 meters away, everybody is happy with a little bit longer house because it's blocking the noise from Mount Pleasant. That's why I believe we didn't get any opposition from Clifton Road at all. So we feel that this is a smart way to deal with a difficult situation with parking, trees, noise, etc.
Any other questions, panel members?
No, good.
Okay, thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, I have visited the area and I'm satisfied with this application. I know it has moved a little bit outside the stretches of what's normally there, but given the explanations given by the applicant on this matter, I will accept this application as it stands and move a motion for, if my friend doesn't have any other objections or anything to say, I'll move a motion for acceptance.
No, I would just add that Mr. Higgins has done his due diligence in terms of community consultation, that there is another house on the south side that abuts Mount Pleasant that's also fairly large, and frankly, I think the design is sensitive to the area, so I would second that motion.
Okay. So it's a motion for approval. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you very much. Have a good morning.
Thank you. Number 11, 34 Yarmouth Gardens. 10.
Copy of, the committee has before it, copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence and support from 10 Yarmouth Gardens and 26 Yarmouth Gardens, and 5 form letters in support from 30, 32, 36, 43 Yarmouth, and 67 Vermont Avenue. Could we have your name and address, please, sir?
Yes, good morning, committee. My name is Brian Abbey. I am the agent for the owners at 34 Yarmouth Gardens.
Thank you. Committee members, do you need a presentation or proceed to questions? Questions? Okay, any questions, committee members?
Mr. Abbey, I'm just going according to your variances. Your variance number 1, your rear yard setback of your you're moving your rear yard down 1 meter more.
We're taking down the existing rear addition, which is quite tiny, and putting up a more respectable, modern rear addition. It's a very short garden.
Yeah. And your floor area, you're moving to 0.93 from 0.69. What's there presently?
Well, the existing house with the current addition is already well over the permitted.
Over the permitted thing. Okay.
We're only adding about another 100 square feet, approximately.
Those are my questions, madam.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Or in committee, discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that these variances meet the 4 tests. The parking variances are existing conditions, and the house is already over the 0.69. I think what's being proposed meets the 4 tests. Both of the adjacent neighbors are in support, as well as several others, so I would be prepared to move approval unless Mr. Russell has anything to add.
I won't add anything at this time. I think it'll meet the 4 test rule.
I'll just say one thing, that the number 32 seems to extend into the rear yard already more than what's been proposed at number 34 from a setback perspective.
Yes, additional evidence.
So, do I have a seconder to that motion?
Second it.
So motion to approve the application, all in favor? Your application's approved. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.
Number 12, 31 Fairleigh, Crescent. Just before you get started, the committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence from the acting coordinator, right-of-way management, transportation services, Toronto and East York District, staff report from the manager of development engineering, engineering and construction services, Toronto and East York, and 4 form letters in support by the owners or occupants of 11, 27, 70 Fairleigh and 123 Whitmore Avenue. We have your name, please, and address.
Andrew Hill, 38 Joe Schuster, agent for the applicant.
Thank you. Committee members, do you need a presentation, or would you like to proceed to questions?
No, we don't need
Questions?
Okay.
Yeah. This is the one that has it has a hammerhead parking in there. Is that correct?
Yeah, the existing condition has a hammerhead, but with the...
Yeah, and transportation wants to remove that hammerhead parking.
Correct, and we have.
You have?
Yes.
Oh.
And in the correspondence with planning, we had removed that, and that variance is removed on the public hearing notice, only has the FSI and the side yard setback as variances.
Okay, so it's already been removed then?
Correct. The site plan on the screen also depicts that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I guess with that, Madam Chair, I have no other issues, but we have to take his word for it that the hammerhead has been removed.
single-car driveway. I think it shows a single-car driveway.
Single car driveway.
Yeah, you could put a condition in that they reinstate it with landscaping to the satisfaction of right-of-way management, if you
Yeah.
want.
I'm going to move for approval of the application with condition. As a condition, my condition is that it be to the satisfaction of right-of-way management.
That the landscaping.
Landscape be to the satisfaction of right-of-way management.
Seconder? Okay, so, all in favor? Your application's approved, subject to that condition. Thank you. Number 13, 2 Bridgeman Avenue. Excuse me. The committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, a previous decision of the Committee of Adjustment affecting the subject property, correspondence from Joseph Mazzatelli, the agent, correspondence requesting deferral from the agent, commenting, email correspondence from Transportation Standards Officer, Right-of-Way Management, Transportation Services, Toronto and East York District, staff reports from the Director of Community Planning, Toronto and East York District, Manager, Permits and Enforcement, Parking, Transportation Services, Toronto and East York District, Acting Supervisor, Tree Protection and Plan Review, Urban Forestry, and correspondence in opposition from 4 Bridgeman Avenue and 329 Holland Avenue. If we could have your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joseph Mazzatelli. I'm the agent.
Okay. So are you still requesting deferral?
Yes, please.
And what are the grounds for that?
Not entirely. Are there new grounds?
What are your, could you
Oh,
explain to
sorry,
the committee
my
why
ground,
you
yes.
wanted
Well, last
deferral?
week, I had a call from Catherine Young, the planner, and she asked that we make about 4 minor changes, and we haven't had time to do that, and she realized that. So we both agreed that we would ask for a deferral.
Why are you unable to make those, why were you unable to make those changes?
Well, the drawings would probably have to be resubmitted to zoning, and the variances might have to be changed.
Do you know which variances you would be changing as it's before us?
We would rotate the parking.
Right.
So that there is access from the laneway, and that might cause an issue with the steps impeding on the parking space size. She asked us to add some landscaping. We could do that at the front.
Okay.
That would change the percentage. She asked for the fence at the top to be inclined, and we haven't drawn that yet as a change.
Is it possible for you to make, because there's an additional variance that will be required for landscaping at the present moment if you have to make those changes? Is it possible for you to address those with the planners, the planner this morning?
I didn't calculate that yet. I know it's going to be a small amount, probably about 5%. I haven't gone into that.
So, but if you don't calculate it, I mean, when was the first time you made this application?
This is my first time with this application.
When did you make it?
When? About 4 months ago. I don't recall, but months and months ago.
If a deferral is granted, will you also be addressing the transportation concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Panel members, consideration of the deferral request?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think as much as we prefer to deal with them the first time, I think in this case, it looks like a lot of variances could be impacted, some could be removed. So I think in this case, a deferral is warranted. So I would move approval of a deferral, including recirculation fees for 3 months, no more than 3 months. So please get on this right away.
And that there will be no further deferrals, and all those outstanding issues should be addressed before you attend this committee next time. And based upon that, I will second the motion.
Okay, so the motion for deferral with recirculation fees for no more than 3 months, with reporting back to the staff before rescheduling, that the matter's been addressed.
All right, thank you.
All in favor? Application's been approved on those conditions.
I've been deferred.
Deferred on those conditions, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 14, 397 Roxton Road. Committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, hydraulic summary showing existing conditions of draining and domestic cold water, staff report from the manager, development, engineering and construction services, Toronto and East York District, 3 signature petition and support signed by the owners and occupants of 386 and 400 Roxton Road and 602 Shaw Street, and correspondence in concern of interest from the owner at 600 Shaw Street. And can we have your name, please?
Yes, my name is David Riley. I'm here on behalf of the owners.
Committee members, do you need a presentation or would you like to go to questions? Okay, any questions, panel members?
Mr. Riley, in your first variance, we're looking at the building containing laneway suite and the landscaping. You're moving from 85% to 54%. What is the reason for that on landscaping?
Certainly. So the soft landscaping is actually an existing condition on the property. We have an existing garage, and the second story will be added for the laneway suite. So the existing landscaping on the property is actually slightly less than what's proposed in terms of soft landscaping. And I'll give you the percentage. So right now, there's 45.35% soft landscaping. And the proposal is to move that to 54. And I'm just going to put this on a plan to show you exactly where that changes. So here's the rear yard. This area here is the grass area. This area right here and this area right here is currently concrete, which is proposed to be made soft landscape. And so there is still a little bit of a concrete in front of the garage that'll be retained for the doors into and connecting to the laneway. However, this is an improvement on the existing situation in the rear yard.
So then variance number 2 and 3 represent existing conditions as well, correct?
Exactly, yes.
And with regards to the height of variance number 2 of 7.5 meters, 0.75 meters?
That's the rear yard setback.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. So that is the existing setback of the garage to the laneway. And as you can see on the site plan, it does line up with the neighboring garages. It's a very common condition on the street. Just show you a photo. So these 3 garages is the subject property. But you can see that the line of the garages do line up in terms of rear yard setback.
Any further questions, committee members?
Just, there was some correspondence between yourself, revised plan submitted on November 8th.
That would have likely been the architect that submitted a revised plan. I believe there were some plan revisions made to address concerns with, in terms of fire access to the property. As far as I'm concerned, or as far as I understand it, all of those concerns are satisfied. There is a 1 meter walkway all the way to Roxton Road. So in terms of fire safety, there is access. And then there's correspondence from development engineering with respect to water and making sure that the water is provided from the Roxton Road. And that's been satisfied as well. So I believe there were some plan changes to address those matters.
Any other questions?
No further.
Thank you. We're in committee discussion or motion.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think I'm feeling that this application has met the 4 tests, but just to make sure we have moved within the right direction, that any approval of this application should refer to memorandum of Manager of Development Engineering dated December 20th, 2018. We speak to easements and everything else.
Mr. Russell, I believe the applicant said that those conditions are met, but there is another one dated January 15th, 2019, regarding the numbering.
No, municipal numbering, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
That's the one. Okay, so based on any outstanding conditions set up by staff, I would move, you have to make an application for municipal numbering too.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I'd move that the application has met the 4 tests and should be approved, based upon the condition that the applicant will address the issue of municipal numbering.
Okay, with that condition, I would second it, Madam Chair.
Okay. All in favor? The application with that condition is approved.
Thank you very much.
Number 16, 142 Avenue Road. Please come forward. Shoot.
Number 60?
Yeah, it's okay. Number 16. Okay, yeah. The committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, email correspondence from the Development Coordinator, Traffic Planning, Transportation Services, a staff report from the Program Manager, Heritage Preservation Services, support letters from Harriet Altman, solicitor on behalf of Jan8 Holding Limited, owners of 177, 181, and 284 Avenue Road, and Avenue Road Toronto Incorporated at 136 Avenue Road, and correspondence in opposition from the Annex Residents Association. Could we have your name and address, please, sir?
Pedro Pimentel, 111 Floridale Drive. I'm the agent of the owner.
Thank you. Committee members, would you like a presentation? Or do you wish to proceed to questions?
I think so. I don't believe the Annex Association is here, so I'd like a presentation on this.
Okay, sir, please proceed then. Thank you.
Yes. So the proposal is to build a two-story addition in the rear of the property that is now presently, the front portion is heritage, and we had several meetings with the Heritage Department, the City of Toronto, and we accomplished what they were looking for, to keep the character of the front part facing Avenue Road. It is a very particular lot because it's facing Avenue Road and Dovercourt. It is a corner lot. The infill that we are proposing is 2 new units at the rear of the property. So we move from a unit with 2-story that will probably be converted in 2 units at the front, which is the heritage part, and we have 2 new units in the back. We met with planning as well, so they have no concerns about the variances. There are variances related with the GFA. The 2 units will create extra about 90 square meters more of the total GFA. We will go from 1 times for 1.43. I think looking at the neighborhood, it's quite a typical development in this area. We're not exceeding the height. We're keeping the 3-story. Again, Heritage was quite confident with the fact that we have this infill 2-story in the back of this property. I did speak with Annex residents, Mr. Van Klaven, about the letter, and he mentioned there was one member that was opposing. I would like to talk with her, but she was not available. So After explaining what we were doing, I think he was okay, but I mean, he will not be in support because one of the members was opposing. So, but I explained the fact that transportation was in our favor. The variances on parking are minor, and planning and heritage are also in support.
So the rear yard setback variance, that's different at the...
It's existing, yeah. That's the existing building, what it is right now. Yes, thank you. And we do have one parking spot on that area.
So the additional 2 units at about 90 square meters? Is that what
90 square meters will be the addition combined, yes.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think this proposal is reasonable. The existing story seems to be more modern than the front that's facing Avenue Road. There's then a bit of a laneway, and then it abuts on Davenport, already a 3-story building, so this will, in fact, be the same height as that. I think that this proposal meets the 4 tests. It is a busy street. It's an arterial, which is where the city looks for intensification. They're staying within the height limits. So I would be prepared to move approval of this application, including the heritage condition, as I think it fits within the context of that area.
Seconder? All in favor? Your application with the heritage conditions.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, item number 17, the person in interest was actually the applicant, so there is no opposition here.
Okay. Number 17, then, 548 Palmerston Boulevard. The committee has it before the following: copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence including 7 photos of existing property received from Victor Rosa, the agent, correspondence including proposed plans and revisions to the rear yard soft landscaping from the agent, email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, staff report from the Director of Community Planning, Toronto and East York District, support letters from 540 Palmerston Boulevard, and a 25 form letter in support signed by the owners and occupants of various properties on Palmerston Bloor and Bloor Street West. Can we have your name, please? And
Very good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Victor Rosa, representing the owners of the property.
Okay, thank you. Any members, do you need a presentation or proceed to questions?
Questions? You're aware of the staff report?
I am, through you, Madam Chair. This is part of the discussions with planning and subsequent revisions incorporated in consent committee of adjustment to reflect an increased landscape based on planning's concerns, because presently we have 0 landscaping at the back of this property. So there's substantial improvement with this flipping of the garage. And I would say also less impact because it's tucked away in the corner of a building that's 3-story behind it, and a building to the north that's a 2-story higher building as well.
So that flipping allows you to get the 10% landscaping in the rear?
No, the landscaping has now been increased, as you see from this revised site plan that I've brought
44.
onto the screen. We're up to 44 square meters, which relates to over 27% of landscaping rather than 0.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Why do you need a 2-story garage?
The reason for the 2-story garage is that this particular owner has several properties within the area that are rental properties. They lack storage facilities for appliances that have to be replaced, bicycle storage for tenants. So there's several properties around this this parcel along Palmerston that are owned by the same owner. And his intent, or their intent, is to use the second floor for storage facilities while creating parking, proper parking facility for the tenants of 548. And I have a picture to show you. That's the sort of condition that we have existing within the garage. It's an eyesore that doesn't serve its correct purpose as a garage. So the intent is to provide proper storage facilities on the second floor. There's no intent to create any additional living space up there. And committee, if they so wish, can impose the condition that there is to be no plumbing facility to the second floor use, only for storage.
Can we just go back to the landscaping again?
Yes.
Are you going to be revising variance number 5?
Variance number 5 has been revised, yes.
But not on our...
I submitted it as a waiver with the attachment of a revised zoning notice with the attachment of the waiver.
Let me just wait for staff comment, because we're still, we would in fact be granting you
10%.
variances.
I understand.
So 27 point, blue sheets, 27.4 and 44.35 meters square.
So the percentage.
27.4.
Okay.
27.4?
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, would we do that as a revision as part of our approval? Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes. 44.35 is going to be constructed substantial currency. Okay. Are you going to be putting on a green roof on the, as staff requests?
Yes, that was part of our submission to planning from the beginning in order to bring up the landscaping factor, even though it technically doesn't qualify as soft landscaping. I think it's a good opportunity to create more, mainly a storage facility for stormwater. It's a stormwater management issue, as well as providing enhanced the look of a flat roof.
Will this height of the garage be in line with the adjacent one, more or less?
Let me show you. That one's. This is facing south, showing the adjacent two-story building in the rear of the property at 546, I would assume, Palmerston Boulevard. You can see it's a two-story, much higher, and the proposed garage will be lower than that, substantially lower than that particular building. But more importantly, in reflecting the garage position, the revised garage position tucked away in that corner where we have basically to the north, it's a three-story building with a step down to a two-story, and the building directly to the west is a three-story building. So there is no imposition of this garage with its two-story flat roof on any of the properties.
Is it blocking that window?
There is no window at the first floor. No, the level of the proposed roof more or less meets the parapet or the flashing that you see of the building to the north. So that window is not affected. I've confirmed that.
Okay.
Right. Okay, any other questions, panel members?
No.
Okay, thank you. We're in committee, discussion or motion?
Yes, based upon the revised plans that includes a 44.35 square meters of soft landscaping, and the green roof, or the one-story green roof, and based upon there won't be any living conditions, so no plumbing inside the garage, I would I'd move for acceptance of this application based on those conditions.
Okay, are you also including the planning report? It has the new site plan.
Yeah, we included planning report.
Did you? I don't know if I missed it. Okay. I would second that. I would also note that there was a lot of support from the surrounding community. So I think it's sensitive to what's there.
All right, all in favor? Your application, as amended, is approved on those conditions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Number 18, if you could please come forward, 27 Camberwell Road. The committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, staff reports from the manager, development engineering and construction services, Toronto and East York District, correspondence from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review, urban forestry, 5 form letters in support from the owners or occupants of 25, 29, 30, and 49 Camberwell Road, and 2 Ross Trevor Road. And for the record, could we have your name, please?
Good morning. My name is TEY, planner for the owners of the property at 27 Camberwell. The proposal before you today is to construct a 2-story single detached dwelling. There are variances related to side yard setbacks for the porch, rear deck, also the building itself.
Okay, can you hold on just for a moment? Panel members, do you need a full presentation, or would you like to proceed with questions?
Questions?
I think we'll proceed with questions. Thank
Sure.
you. Questions then?
My first question is the engineering conditions in the December report. Have they been addressed?
No, they basically asked for structural drawings and such. We have no problems with providing those drawings. Those haven't been provided as of yet,
Okay.
but they will be.
All right.
The FSI, is there other?
Yes.
How does that compare to the prevailing forms in the area?
So behind you is a map. The subject site's been highlighted in red. All those properties that have been highlighted in green, it's not very clear, but those are properties that are in green are 0.85 or greater. So on the street itself on Camberwell, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 or 7 houses that are similar in FSI. Also at the same time, the variances before you today don't have height variances. There is a length variance, but it's very technical. It's related to the basement. There's a laundry room that extends into the beneath the porch at the front, which makes it get calculated part of length. So the house itself proper is 16.86 meters. It's less than 17 meters. So the FSI number is not representative in terms of how it's deployed on the property. It's appropriately located. It's located appropriately, and in addition to that, doesn't have any major impacts. It doesn't extend beyond the adjacent dwellings, and also support letters have been received from the adjacent properties as well.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No further questions.
So we're in committee.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that these variances meet the 4 tests. Both the front and the back of this house line up with the adjacent properties, and it doesn't really go much further beyond. There are a lot of new homes in the area of differing designs. There are several neighbors that are in support of this application, so if my colleague doesn't have anything to add, I would be prepared to move approval. Including the engineering condition in the December 12th report, as well as forestry condition number 2.
And he's going to submit a site plan.
Sorry?
So the engineering
The engineering conditions,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, based on the second motion.
Okay, all in favor? Your application's approved, subject to those conditions. Number 19, 251 Bartlett Avenue. Committee has before it copy of plan of survey, site plans, floor plans, and elevations. If we could have your name and address, please. I'm sorry, are you in opposition, or are you? Okay, so stay there for now, but generally you would sit in the back, but that's okay. Okay.
I'm Sharon McKenzie. I am the owner's agent, and the owner is right here, Joycelyn Mitz-Sweet.
Committee members, do we have any, do you want a presentation or proceed to questions?
Questions?
I think we'll proceed with questions.
Yes.
Questions?
I just have a question. Basement walkout. Do you have any examples of those?
Yeah, well, actually, this went to community planning, and originally we had the basement walkout coming perpendicular to the house, so that it came out towards the street, and they requested that we turn it sideways so that it's kind of tucked in into the existing porch. So I think it's quite not noticeable. I myself have recently just completed a project quite similar, and it is from the street. You don't notice the basement walkout too much.
What is there in soft landscaping at the present moment?
The area of soft landscaping, that is 29% is soft landscaping at the front. We're not proposing any changes. This is the existing condition. We're not increasing the amount of hard landscaping.
You're saying 20, application is 27, you're saying 29%?
The variance says 27%.
Yeah. And 29 was what you suggested, no?
Sorry?
You just mentioned 20.
You just mentioned 20.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm dyslexic. I'm sorry. 27%. That's what it says in the variance is.
That's existing.
And that's existing.
And that's existing.
And the floor space index is at 0.72 at present moment?
The altered semi-detached zone of, no, it's not at a 0.72 at the moment. We are constructing a two-story rear yard addition, so the index has increased. But I think it's a minor increase. We're also required, because we're proposing to put in a basement unit, that now the basement is being included in the gross floor area, so that really bumps it up quite a bit.
But your application seeks 0.72% here, so it doesn't give you any ability to go and build beyond the 0.72% that you're looking for.
But we're not,
because you're saying that you plan to increase. I mean, this application only gives you 0.72%, 0.72 times the area of the lot.
I think they're increasing it because of the basement unit is adding, it's now counted
Yeah.
as part of the FSI, so that's why they need the 0.72, if I understand.
Yeah, but what I'm understanding from her is that she's going to be building beyond that, and I'm saying no.
No,
we're only giving you at 0.72.
No, we're just requesting 0.72.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other questions?
No other questions.
Thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, the application itself is, as it stands, is I move for approval that meet the 4 tests and not contrary to Riverside of Toronto bylaws.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Number 20, 26 Churchill Avenue. The committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, covering letter, including a reference plan, identifying registered easements from Sarah Turney, solicitor, a previous decision of the Committee of Adjustment, email correspondence from the Assistant Planner, Community Planning, City Planning, Toronto and East York District, and letter of support from 63 Lakeview Avenue. Okay, just for the record.
Good morning again, Victor Rosa representing the owners of this property.
Okay, do we need a presentation from
No.
members or just for Chris?
No, we
Okay.
don't.
Questions then?
No, Madam Chair.
Well,
I don't know. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to know why he needs 11.6% on the lot coverage for the ancillary building.
Well, you can appreciate that the ancillary building at the maximum 5% entails 16.7 square meters, which basically is a small little shed which wouldn't accommodate the intended use as a workshop studio auxiliary building. And you'll note from the overhead I've put up here, the area that we're proposing for this structure is well within existing structures at the rear of adjacent properties as well. In fact, it's probably even smaller. And it's not projecting beyond the wall face of the structure next to it. So I think the impact of this structure in its 11.6% of the lot area is not an imposition to any subsequent neighbor there.
It does have, it looks like a bathroom, I'm not sure, sink, so.
As part of, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I assume the buildings adjacent are garages.
Yes.
Why is it that you need, because usually we approve it without plumbing connections?
With the nature of the studio that's intended and their work, the sink that's being proposed is to be accessory to their type of work that they're intending to do within the studio.
Then why is a washroom necessary?
Yeah.
For convenience, it's not intended as a habitable space.
Okay, so you're looking for a change in use that's not permitted under the bylaw.
No, we're not looking for a change in use. We have a use that is permitted.
Variance number 1 is suggesting that
It's not
it's not an
ancillary.
auxiliary to a residential use.
It's permitted, provided the use is ancillary to the residential use.
No, a
They're
garage or shed is permitted, not a studio workshop.
The technical aspect of that interpretation, the studio and workshop is ancillary to the residential use, but the zoning doesn't define it that way. But it is accessory to the residential use. It's not a rentable space. It's for the use of the tenant. You'll note as well from previous decisions on this property that they went from multi-unit to a single-family dwelling. So they've in 2009. So they've taken away the multi-unit aspect of the residential building. So and it's the same owners. So their intent is to maintain the diminished use as a single-family dwelling and have this accessory structure for use as a studio.
Is there any other examples where that use has been permitted?
I could not find any other examples within the area. As you had mentioned, generally it's garage structures or sheds back there. Well, not really garage because accessibility is limited to the back of these properties.
Any other questions from our members?
No other questions.
Okay.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
We're in committee.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah, and variance number 1, I had some problem with the garage and the use. as a studio workshop. And my problem is further that the applicant has not been able to prove to this committee that there are other studio workshops which are ancillary buildings within the area. So I have a problem with variance number 1. On variance number 2, if it's ancillary building, I'll be willing to move forward with variance number 2, but I won't support the variance number 1 on this matter.
Through you, Madam Chair, in terms of the structure itself, the size, I would be in agreement with my colleague. I don't think that that's an unreasonable part of this application. I do, however, have concerns with variance number 1, particularly because of the bathroom, the sink. There's nothing stopping anyone from renting it out as a studio apartment. So I would be inclined to approve variance 2 and refuse variance number 1, and have a condition that no plumbing connections can be put to the building.
Would you be okay with variance number 1 with the condition there be no plumbing?
Yeah, the change.
Well, we would still. Well, I suppose it's.
Is it the use?
Well, I mean, that would be another way to go, is to approve it with a condition that no plumbing connections be put or allowed to the building. Sorry? Can I just come out of committee for a second? Do you know what kind of business or what is this workshop going to be for?
It's like an art type of studio.
Is it a business?
No. It's for their personal use.
Okay.
It's not a retail space. It's not any intended use, but just accessory to.
Not offering classes or anything?
No.
Why would if they're not offering classes, why would there be workshop needed? Why would you need some for like a workshop? Workshop is basically classes.
Well, maybe
They class it as a workshop / studio. It's really a small little studio accessory to the owner of the residential dwelling.
So technically, if we approve variance number 2, he could, without any plumbing or any of that kind of facility, he could technically build it within purviews of the required bylaw.
Sorry?
I don't understand.
Yeah, if we just approve variance number 2, he could go ahead and build what is needed without having that whatever studio or what kind of.
Oh, I see. So you're saying if only what he's saying, my colleague's saying, I think, is that if variance number 2 is approved, they could technically still go and paint in there or do crafts in there.
Yeah.
Just won't have access to water. That's it.
It really becomes a technical definition of its use.
Right.
Accessibility is limited to the rear of the lot. You can appreciate that by the narrowness between the two homes. This particular owner already took it upon and had the expense of removing those parts that was associated to rights of way, leading to the rear of the garage. There is very limited accessibility, if at all, for a vehicle to get back here, and even worse, get out.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, can we go back in committee? So through you, Madam Chair, I would be prepared to move approval of the variances, but with the condition that there be no plumbing connections to the ancillary structure, and that it cannot be used as habitable space.
I'll be prepared to support the no plumbing and no habitable.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Your application's approved on those conditions.
Very good. Thank you for your time again. Have a nice day.
Are we okay, madam?
The planning is okay with this one.
Okay. Well, now we'll go to the items that were held. Start with number 3, 26 Carey Road. If those people, if here are still in opposition, you could please come and sit down here, please. Thank you very much. So while people are getting settled, I'll just read what the committee has before it.
Variance number 3?
Variance number three, yes. Item number 3, yes.
We don't get number.
Pardon?
We get on break.
Yeah, break.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Do you want to take a break? Maybe. Okay.
Ali Shakiri, 326.
You know, we're going to just stand down for 5 minutes.
Sure.
This break, we just need a little bit of a break. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Is it really noticeable?
Oh, you can't, no.
It's like huge.
It's not.
I did bring another pair, but I can't be bothered changing them. Yeah, I better be able to get to Aroma to get my sandwich. That's all I have to say. Better tell Ava too.
Okay, we're back in session, so we'll get started. So, name and address, please, sir.
Ali Shakiri, 326 Shepherd Avenue East. So the application before you is a single dwelling. We have requested to increase the floor space and increase the height. And also there is an integral garage variance. The design is very similar to
the house that I put on display across the road, number 19 Carey Road. What we're asking is going to result of a house more or less the same shape. I have no further comments if there is.
Or you, no, I have a question.
Sure.
As you're starting, just some of the submissions to the committee are making an assertion that there are variances that are missing. Let me just, as you're doing your presentation, just speak to whether or not you agree with that.
Yes, that's basically every single case that we bring before the Committee of Adjustment. If it falls under SERA, they make that comment that basically we haven't had any previous application that the SERA hasn't made the same comment that we're missing variances. That's gone for the past decade maybe, yet there is not even one case that we had to come back here for a missing variance. So to us, if there is any variance missing here, that would cause denial of the permit application, and we have to come here before you again.
So you are here on a waiver, so you're saying
yes, absolutely.
You are confident
yes.
that what your application is the extent of the variances
yes.
that are necessary for the proposal
exactly.
that you have before the committee.
Exactly.
Okay,
so we are just asking for the variances that we need to basically achieve that.
We'll hear from the
Sure.
others as well.
Of course.
Just before you start your presentation, I'd like you to address that because that is part of the
Of course. I have no further comments.
issues that have been raised. Okay, please proceed.
Could I
Go
just
ahead.
ask one more question on this topic? We have both the councillor and the ratepayers are asking for a deferral to deal with these items. Have you had any consultation for starters since this application was in with the community? Have you had any discussions so that you could have avoided having the committee coming out today?
No, we haven't had any discussion with the neighbors. I think the owner had a discussion with one of the neighbors. Yet deferring the case is not, based on the previous cases that we've had in the area, is not going to basically bring it to a point that would be amicably acceptable by neighbors and the owner. That we believe that the integral garage asked as a variance is something that is very, very essential for the design, and the neighbors are not basically satisfied with that. So deferring the case would basically put further delay on the case. So based on that, we don't wish this to be deferred. We wish this to be heard, if possible.
Okay.
I have no further comments.
Oh,
if
you
there's
have
any
nothing
questions.
You're not going to make a
Oh, okay.
presentation?
All right.
You're not going to?
So, okay. The height of that one, you say, is across the street? Is it the same height as what you're applying for?
The height of that building is in compliance. It doesn't have the house across the street doesn't have a floor height variance, the building height variance, but we are asking for additional 50 centimeters. And I mean, that went to the Committee of Adjustment at a different time. There were different, basically, provisions of the bylaw. Perhaps if the
when did it go? It doesn't.
I think it was like 3-4 years ago. Not.
Why are you not able to comply? Just because you want a little bit higher ceiling? Is that?
There are things. Speaking about the height of the building, the topography of lots are all individually different. So while we can comply with certain lots, we might not be able to basically comply with the height for some others. It depends on the topography. For example, that other side of the house, if you see it's kind of like bermed up in front of the house, that might affect the topo. So every single lot has different characteristic that might result. It doesn't necessarily mean that a house is taller or shorter than the others. It's, you know, when we pick up different points on the topo that are means of establishing the height of the building, that can affect the height of the building. So we didn't require it for the other house. We do require for this house. We basically, it's in your hands whether that's inappropriate or not.
And the height of the height of the floors, there's no are they 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet?
I can tell you, I think the main floor.
Compliance?
The height of the main floor is 10 foot, and the height of the second floor is 9 foot.
I know you're here on a waiver.
Yes.
But since you filed this application, did you have any conversations with the zoning examiner?
No, we haven't.
And that's kind of standard practice? You never talk to them?
Well,
I'm asking because it seems to be across the board, as was mentioned, that there are variances.
That's we usually I mean, all our previous cases has been so. We always submit a waiver because we're familiar with the zoning bylaw in the area.
Okay.
Past, I'm sure the committee of adjustment staff know about the way that we always do. We basically sign the waiver and we determine the variances. And obviously, if we miss any variance,
right,
we have to come before you again.
But you can see how that can be an issue, having to come back.
I do. Did that?
You and others.
But.
But it's an option.
But if that's a legal option for us, I think we are not exercising anything.
I'm curious if you have conversations at all with zoning, but that's all. You've answered the question. Thanks.
So the integral garage, there's that one. Is there more in the area, or are they becoming more common?
The Carey Road is a very, very small road. I think it's like maybe 20 houses, or Mr. Kiwi knows better.
Street, yeah.
But yeah, it's a very short street. There are examples of that, many examples of that elsewhere in the proximate neighborhood, but on Carey Road, that's the only one, which happens to be across the street.
Okay, so, and I see that. In the approximate neighborhood, do you have any addresses of others?
I didn't bring any with me, but...
Are they, what streets are they on, do you know?
On Manor Road, for example, Manor Road East, there are, between the Yonge to Mount Pleasant, there are around 20 houses. That was my previous presentation when I had between Yonge and Mount Pleasant on Manor Road East alone are 20 houses with the integral garages. That was basically filed before, but so many others. If that's a requirement, I can perhaps
well, it's just
to get a short extension from you and present if that affects the decision.
Well, that's your submission. That's fine.
Very dominant on Manor Road East, particularly.
All right. Want to do the opposition? We'll hear from the those opposed, and then we'll have you back. Sure. Okay. Thank you. So how many people are planning to speak?
I think two.
Two?
I've
Okay.
asked the abutting neighbors to speak first.
Okay, so if we can, okay.
Hi, my name is Glenn Leslie. I'm at 24 Carey Road. I'm directly to the west of where they're proposing to build.
Okay.
So a few things. We do have a mutual right-of-way that we share. At the front of the right-of-way, they're proposing it would be a bit of a fireplace extension that would encroach on our right-of-way. It's already narrow. They're already narrow, and I don't believe that they should be able to come in on that. We couldn't never build over onto our right-of-way. We couldn't put a fence or block it in any way. It's there initially for parking into the rear, which they could take advantage of if they wanted to design it that way, but they're not. They're trying to go for an integral. As far as the grading goes, too, the negative lot, the negative grade on Carey Road is to the west and to the south. So the south is the street. And they're building, almost doubling the footprint of the house. In our yards, we have a retaining wall that goes from 2 to 3 feet to keep the water up there. If they're building back into the back of the house, they're going to be taking up a lot of green space, a lot of grass. That water just comes to the south and to the west. It's where our house is. And already the sidewalks along Carey Road, when there's a thaw and a freeze, it's just, the sidewalks are icy. They're so icy. There's nowhere else to go for the water but down the driveways, into our basement, and onto the sidewalks. That's where they go before they hit the street. As well, that deck that they want to build in the back, it's like right in the middle of our backyards, our collective backyards, and it's towering over all of us. It's in the middle, and it's only about 1.8 meter away from our fence, our privacy fence in the middle of the yard. I mean, there's others, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Shelley Fowley, and I live at 28 Carey Road. I would just like to say that there was no discussion prior to these designs. We would have been more than open to discuss this building and the expectation. We are against the garage. We feel that there is a mutual drive, that this is a new build. Accommodations can be made. There's no existing structure that needs to be addressed. I am very concerned about the green space, the front of the property. When you put a garage, even a single car garage, you're taking up most of the green space in the front of that property. The back, it's going back quite a bit, and again, the green space is going to be jeopardized. It's going to be house on that lot and very little else. Is there anything else? The lack of light for us, because we did build an extension. I am not against new builds or building extensions, but it will go out quite a bit, and it will go up to the 3rd floor. Our extension went up 2 floors, and I feel we have a fairly large house. We really do have a 6-bedroom house. 1 bedroom we could cut into and make 2 more quite large rooms. So we're not short on space. We don't have a finished basement. I feel that there is accommodation there for the garage. I really think it will impact our community. We're on top of a slope. You're making a house that's even higher. You know, it's making the homes around it look insignificant, to say the least, almost shed-like. And I think that needs to be addressed. I think that's probably all I have to say.
Thank you.
Two and the ratepayers.
For the record, your name, please.
My name's Al Keevy. I'm with the South Eglinton Ratepayers Association. I'm called a frequent flyer, so I come here quite often. So,
No, we still need your name for the record. That's, thank you.
If I can get started, this is one of I believe it's about the 6th house that's come in front of the committee. The first one in this year. We've had 5 last year that have come in front of either this committee or the other panel within the garages under the new bylaw. All of the 5 houses have been refused by committee 4 of the cases are now at TLAB currently right now. We're in the process of trying to interpret the bylaw. What does the bylaw mean? Does it have force? How does the bylaw relate to the official plan? So we're in the midst of all of that. I can give you a little snapshot of what the thinking is specifically with 46 Banff. Because it's a case that was almost decided, but then it came back under a review process, and Ian Lord wrote a decision in the review process to say what worked and what didn't. The gist of it is, and I put together a couple of briefing notes on this, it's a rather long read, but the briefing notes say, at the end of the day, we should treat this bylaw as we treated the below-grade garage bylaw or the reverse slope bylaw. In our particular area, it was called the basement garage bylaw. Each of those bylaws that came forward had a purpose and intent. And what you did through the adjudication process is you would look at the purpose and intent of that bylaw and ask the applicant to come forward and argue that the proposed variance, in that case the below-grade garage, met the purpose and intent of the bylaw. This is what I hopefully expected today for Mr. Shakiri to do. This is part of the, how to say, emerging case law, but it's understandable that if you have a bylaw and you're applying the test purpose of intent of the bylaw, that you certainly should go back and understand the study and understand why the bylaw is in place. In my presentation package, I put together, and I always have to keep an eye on the time because I end up talking too much. If we can go to page 13 of my presentation. Not the letter of concern, that's another issue that we can't talk about. So this is the purpose and intent of the bylaw. Maybe I can put it up on screen and read it. It might be a little bit better that way. Thank you. So the way that we should properly adjudicate this, if we look just at the integral garage aspect, the variance, and this is not the only variance, but I think it's probably instructional and interesting today that we look at it fairly closely. So if we look at this variance, we would then go to the purpose and intent of the bylaw that constructed the integral garage bylaw. And there are 11 items that are described in the purpose and intent of the bylaw. And if we can just read through those very quickly, the purpose and intent of the bylaw with respect to it is to ensure a more predictable built form. Well, this is not predictable. This is not by Mr. Shakiri's evidence, there's only one other integral garage on the street, so it's not predictable. It's something that's new and unusual. Does it respect and reinforce the existing built form, scale, and street proportion? I would argue it doesn't. Does it preserve the quality of the neighborhood streetscape? I would argue it doesn't. And as we go down, and particularly the street wall and all of that, my evidence is that it fails 9 of those 11 tests, 9 of those 11 purposes and intents. I would ask Mr. Shakiri, when he stands up, to produce an argument that says, oh, okay, now let me explain his interpretation, his argument for the purpose and intent. Can he persuade the panel that this particular variance meets the purpose and intent of the bylaw? And I would say that if he manages to do that, we should let him proceed with the application today. If he doesn't manage to persuade the panel of the purpose and intent of the bylaw, that we should ask the application be refused.
Okay, you're over 5 minutes, so...
Yes, thank you.
Can you wrap up?
That's it. I await his rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak, or everyone who wishes to speak has spoken? Okay, thank you. Mr. Carey, can we have your response, please?
Speaking of the precedence of that kind of building, I just went to my files and I could find some of these photos of the other houses on Manor Road East. These are only on Manor Road East. I'm not even showing the other streets. The houses, absolutely similar concept with the built-in garages. Not one, not two, so many.
Are those within the neighborhood?
Yes, they're all only on Manor Road East. I'm not even going to the other streets, but if you can see here, even modern concepts, our design this is Manor Road East. These are the photos I took just from the Manor Road East. You see the houses?
Any double garages or more singles?
They're more singles, but they're 25-foot lots, 30-foot lots, I mean, the different sizes. But what we have over here is a wide one-car garage. It's not a two-car garage. A two-car garage has to be at least 19 feet. But comparing to the one that is across the street, it's smaller by I think 2 or 3 feet. So these are all the houses on Manor Road East. So when I would contest that when Mr. Kiwi writes here, he's basically the fail with capital on the build form. This is, to me, it actually, my test, I mean, it's obviously with you to decide what's right, what's wrong, but I think it's well within the build form of the neighborhood. It's all written here, the neighborhood, but when Mr. Kiwi addresses the panel, he's talking about the street. I think we should look at the entire neighborhood and see what's happening. And it's not just one or two. There's so many convincing. We were convinced that this is an appropriate build form, and it's been done repeatedly in the proximate neighborhood, let alone there is one larger precedent just across the street. I think we're basically on every single of these points where it's mentioned that we fail, we have basically the exact opposite opinion. The height of the building, we're asking for just half a meter more. That is going to assist us getting better height interior of the house. That 50 centimeters or half a meter, comparing to the scale of the house, is not major, but when we go to inside of the house, a floor that is 9 foot, turning it to 10 foot, that's a huge difference for the person who's living inside of the house. I would just go to page 10 of what Mr. Kiwi actually presented. It's very and please let me know if you want to see more precedents of those built-in garages in the proximate neighborhood. You see on the right side, I mean, this graph is prepared by Mr. Kiwi, not me, and it's clearly the house on the right side is taller than us, and it's a 3-story. Did we propose a 3-story? No. Did we propose a house that is as tall as that? No. It's basically it's a 2-story house, and it is basically very cohesive with the new houses in the entire neighborhood. And we do ask for a couple of variances that are basically precedented in the area. And we hope that you move to approve. If there is any question, I'd be more than glad to answer.
One of the persons who spoke brought up the chimney breast. Can you comment on that and the right? I think a comment was that it goes into the right of way.
Well, I heard that this morning. I have to examine that. Yet we are not asking for any variance for the chimney. Number one. Number two is if there is an encroachment into a right of way, it's not even a variance. So let's say if that chimney is encroaching into any right of way, when we go for the building permit, they're going to ask us to remove that, which they're not going to allow us to build any chimney or whatever extension of the building inside the right-of-way. So that's not even a variance.
Not sure at the moment whether or not it
I'm
does.
not, because I heard it just today. I'm unsure. What I'm sure about is that we do not require any variance for that. And if that is an encroachment, it's not even something we can be granted a variance for. That the committee cannot grant us a variance to encroach into any right-of-way. So we have to basically remove that if, God forbid, that encroaches to any right-of-way.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes, if we were to basically push the garage to the backside, then the amount of water drained into the street is going to be majorly more than what we have now. Because, you know, now it's just a driveway. By the way, the driveway that Mr. Kiwi shows is much wider than what we have. It's no wider than that garage. But just imagine that length multiplied by, I don't know, 4 or 5, going through the side and then to the backside, all that water is going. Yet, you know, I know that is a possibility, and that there are existing houses that have the garage on the backside. It can be designed that way. It can be drained that way. Even putting the garage on the back has ways to drain that surface water and no problem. But this is going to be, my opinion, easier to drain.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, sorry.
With regards to that deck on the back side, I'm sure you have the site plan. It's just like on the half of the house. It's not entirely on the back, and it's just 1.2 meter above the grade. It's not one of those rear decks that are just projecting 2 or 3 meters higher than the grade. I mean, even if it was that way, it wouldn't have been a variance under the current zoning bylaw, but that rear deck we have just accommodated a very, very minimal size of a rear deck, which is very, very close to the grade, and I think that's very reasonable for this house to have that size of deck. And the lack of light, you know, the house is not longer than what the bylaw allows. We are not asking for any setbacks. It's just, you know, that the only thing is that we're asking for additional half a meter, which I don't think if it's going to be majorly compromising any light. It's with you to decide whether that's an appropriate variance or not. So I'm hoping that you accept it as a variance.
Thank you very much. Questions, panel members?
You put in a rear deck on this house?
Pardon me?
Yes.
You're including a rear deck?
The rear deck, yes, but it's not a variance.
Yeah, very much.
It's a very moderate size of 8 foot by 12 foot.
So what adjustments are you making for drainage from the back to the front onto the street?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
What adjustments will you make from the back if the water settles in the back? What adjustment to drain the water?
Oh, that will be eventually designed by a civil engineer or land surveyor, how to manage that water and where it goes, that surface drainage. But usually they put swales on either side of the house. If the side of the house is a mutual way or it's paved, then it's going to be on that pavement. And if any water is trapped in the backyard, then they have to usually they design some sort of a French well or water wells or dry wells to just drain the water. But that's an engineering matter which has to be dealt with at the building permit stage.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. We're in committee. Discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, this is a bit of a tough one because in terms of the numbers of the variances, they're not huge. But when you look at the massing of the house, it's quite large. Even though the house to the right is a 3-story, it doesn't look as overpowering as this house does. I would have preferred to have the applicant be amenable to a deferral, but he's not. So we have to make a decision today. I think the opposition brought forward some good points. And despite the fact that there is one across the street that's similar, 2 wrongs do not necessarily make a right. So I am somewhat conflicted on this one.
I was not satisfied with the issue with regards to the engineering aspects, and maybe the application should have dealt with those aspects by working along with engineers here, working in the committee. I also feel that the building itself is a little bit outstanding, overpowering for the neighborhood, and in such consideration, I believe it to be out of the character of the neighborhood. So I'm going to move for refusal.
Is there a seconder? Okay, all in favor? My dissent.
Thank you.
So the application's refused. Item number 8, 22 Chudleigh Road. Committee has before a copy of a plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Email correspondence from the Assistant Planner, Community Planning, City Planning, Etobicoke York District. Could we have your name and address, please?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Marco Vieira. I'm the agent for this application.
Okay, are those opposed still present?
No, we met with them outside. We outlined our proposal. We explained to them what we were doing. Their concern was with drainage. They were curious to see how we were going to drain it. Asked both neighbors on either side, because we've made a reduction to our deck area in the back, they've asked if we can add a 1.8 meter high privacy fence on both sides. Even though on one side we're about 10 feet away, 3 meters away from the property line, we have no objections. If you should approve the application to put that as a condition.
Tell us what changes you're going to make.
So there's no changes to the variances. They were fine with our proposal, but they would like the condition to be added that we add a privacy screen to the east and west side of the proposed deck at the first floor. They also asked, sorry if I may continue, they also were curious to find out why the increase in the GFA. So I explained to them that part of our basement, because it's closest to established grade, that area is being added to the GFA. That proposed first and second floor is at 71%. The portion of the basement, it's approximately 29% that gets added onto our GFA. It is very similar in character with what has been built recently in the area. And once I went through that, they were okay with that as well.
So the GFA will change. What about the floor space index?
Doesn't change. It's just that the way the bylaw reads it, the basement area counts, and that area is added to our first and second floor. That's why we're asking for 1 times the lot area, but the actual breakdown, first and second floor is 0.71%, and the remaining is the basement area.
One question for you.
Yes.
The variances noted in the notice of public hearing, do they reflect
Yes.
the March 23rd plans? That
Yes, they do.
Now is supportive of?
Yes.
Given the revisions? Okay.
Yes.
So there's no further adjustments to the variances necessary? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any examples of integral garages on the
Yes, I
screen?
do. This first picture is just the picture of the site. That's the house to the right is ours. The neighbor, number 24, was one of the neighbors we spoke to outside. Number 26, it's an existing dwelling that's got the at-grade garage. That's number 15 on Rockvale Avenue. On Nairn Avenue, there's quite a few. There's been a lot more development along Nairn Avenue. That's 385 Nairn. Across the street at 392 Nairn. And then further up the street towards Eglinton, 430 and 432. And then on Harvey, heading south next to the park, underwent some big renovations. There's also another example. That one has a below-grade garage.
And the driveway width is only as wide as the garage you're proposing?
Correct.
What about the second, why do you want a second story deck of 12 meters, 12 square meters?
It's because the first floor deck is considered to be the second floor, because the height of the front of the house, the established grade, closest point to established grade is the basement. So the basement becomes our first story, first floor becomes the second, and the third story on top. The deck on the third floor is a very small deck, approximately 1 meter in depth, just basically the width of the door. It's more for an aesthetic look than a large gathering. It's quite small.
One more question.
Further questions?
No, through you, Madam Chair. If there are no other comments, I think that the applicant has demonstrated that this area is in transition, that there's a mix of styles in terms of what has been built recently. And he's also demonstrated that the integral garages exist. So I think the proposal fits within the character of the neighborhood, meets the 4 tests. So I would move approval, including a condition that has privacy screening on the east and west side of the deck, no higher than 1.5 meters. Sorry? Did
I said 1.8 for 6
this-
feet, but if 1.5 is...
1.8, that's fine.
Do I have a seconder? You second that?
Was there a drainage issue there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, your application's approved with that condition.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9. 231 Clinton Street, please. So if there are people remaining in opposition, could you sit on the left-hand side, please? Okay, so just before we start, the committee has before a copy of plan of survey, site plans, floor plans, and elevations, email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto and East York District, staff report from the program manager, urban design heritage, city planning, Toronto and East York District, correspondence in support from 220 Clinton Street, correspondence in concern or interest from 219 Clinton, 233 Clinton, and correspondence from Ms. Pepino, solicitor on behalf of the owners at 233, correspondence in opposition from 204A Clinton, 573 Euclid, 168 Clinton, and 196 Clinton. If I could have your name, please, sir?
Yes, my name is Stephen.
Stephen?
Stephen what?
Stephen.
Stephen Lin. L-I-N.
L-I-N?
Yeah.
Is your formal name Y-I-K-A-N?
Oh no, that's like she's my colleague, but she's cannot be here today, so I
Okay.
praising
Dear
her. Stephen Lin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Are you asking for a deferral?
yeah, we are.
Okay, and the reasons why?
Because we received a letter yesterday from the city saying that they recommended us for them to have 6 months to evaluate that house, that region, because that they think that this house is not registered as a heritage property, but because the neighbors want to keep that house, so they want to evaluate that situation. They need time.
When did you get the letter from?
Yesterday afternoon, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, yeah.
I'm not sure if you're aware of the letter that we got from the counselor's office, which,
Yeah, we
which
did,
speaks to community consultation. If this committee grants you a deferral, will you be taking steps to engage with people in the community to come to a consensus on the application?
I think we both wants to defer that.
No, what I'm asking is that if we defer it,
Yeah.
because they've mentioned that
Mhm.
there hasn't been discussion with your neighbors, okay, and
Oh.
people that are affected in the community. So this committee, if we grant you a deferral, we expect you to engage with
Oh, sure,
people
yeah.
that are objecting, have a meeting, you
Mhm.
know, or two, or whatever is needed to try to work
Yeah,
things
sure,
out.
yeah.
Okay.
You undertake to do that?
So you would be doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess, are the neighbors that are here, yeah, are you okay with the deferral?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jane Pepino on behalf of the community. I've been retained specifically by Mr. and Mrs. Gertler, neighbors to the north at 233. We support the request for deferral. In fact, requested last week the applicant consider a deferral. I've heard zero from him, which speaks to the zero lack of consultation that's been provided to the community. But as you note, the opposition is strong, not only petitions and letters of opposition, but now the councillor's letter. I need to say also that our review of the plans has led us to conclude that this is proposed to be a rooming house. The result of that is that there will be variances missing. And we are also aware now that Heritage is evaluating this group of 5 Victorian cottages. So ideally, the deferral will allow time for the city to catch up, but more importantly, the applicant to better understand what is possible and what is not. And I had already spoken to the agent for the applicant to ask for contact information of someone who might actually respond to our request for consultation. So we support the deferral for all of those reasons.
Just a very short answer. If a deferral is granted, like, is there anything that will potentially be gained or be different in terms of when you come back?
Not without significant changes to the proposal. Significant. If we were to proceed today, there would be opposition on a broad number of heads. There would have to be amendments to the plans.
Okay.
So will you be working along with the councillor's office to make sure that there is communication with the applicant?
We certainly have contacted the councillor's office and have had success in engagement, and hopefully through his office we'll be able to ensure that the applicant is brought to the table if they don't voluntarily do it.
And if I could ask the applicant, will you, as you heard, as it stands now, you're going to have significant opposition. If we grant a deferral, are you amenable to making some changes to improving this application so that, 3 months down the road, we're not here again listening or looking at the same variances?
To be honest, I cannot grant that because, as I said before, it's my colleague who is in charge of this project. So,
Can I ask a question then? So if we aren't inclined to grant deferral, are you prepared to proceed to present your case today?
no, not present a case today.
Okay, well, that's concerning from the sense of you have to be prepared. Deferrals are not an automatic thing. It's unfortunate that your colleague who is charge of the file isn't here to speak to it, because there is no guarantee that the committee will be agreeing to defer this application.
Okay.
And if we don't agree to defer it, you would have to proceed with your case today. Okay. So I'm just saying that for today and for future reference.
Okay.
Okay.
Not only that, Madam Chair, I mean, he has to be prepared to, as my colleague has requested, he has to be prepared to meet with the councillor or whatever method this to communicate any changes or to hear the neighbors. If he's not, then he has to proceed.
So is there anything else that you'd like to submit today before we consider the deferral request?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we're in committee?
Through you, Madam Chair, you know, where there's a means to work something out, I'm always prepared to support it. In this case, we've got a councillor asking for refusal. We've got a heritage/urban design report asking for deferral. We've got representatives from the community that are willing to support a deferral. I would be prepared to move approval of a deferral, but with a very strong message to the applicant that whoever comes back here to present, when it comes back, that there be some significant changes and things that, you know, will have been worked out. Because if you're going to come back with the same thing, then, you know, we might as well deal with this today.
Okay, I will convey that message to the...
And in addition to that, I would like that you either set up a meeting on your own, but perhaps engage with the local councillor's office and have them facilitate a meeting with the neighbors to try to work through some issues, because it's better to work through them.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, if you can. So with that message, I would be prepared to move deferral of the application, including recirculation fees for, well, I don't know what our scheduling's like. 3 months, no more than 3 months?
On notice?
3 months.
We've been asking applicants to ensure that they've made their revisions in time to have something done.
So would we say that upon notification to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer that they are prepared to proceed?
Then it's
in the
open-ended.
discussion?
That's open-ended.
Okay, but
Okay,
a maximum of?
Okay, so with let's say a maximum of 6 months, and again, you need to convey to the people that are going to be presenting, they need to get their updated materials into the planning staff way before the scheduled dates, like a long time.
But we've had Heritage ask for 6 month deferrals and they go much longer than that.
3 months, we have to 3 to 6 months. I'll support 3 to 6 months. Be brought in time between that time, because I don't want Heritage to come back in here and asking for 6 more months.
Well, but we can't, but on counter, we can't defer it indefinitely, the applicant.
No, but no, we can give 3 to 6 months. We can
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm prepared to move 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, with the recirculation fees.
And be prepared to move. Prepared to respond, because there won't be any other, which we've been overloaded with all these deferrals. There won't be any others after this. You get one deferral.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Okay, and you're seconding that?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the application has been deferred with that understanding.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, number 10, 981 Dovercourt Road. As you're coming forward, I'll just let you know what the committee has before it. Copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Correspondence and opposition from 973 Dovercourt and 979 Dovercourt. If we could have, please have your name and address, please.
Hi, Daniel Rafiq. I'm the agent.
Okay. And if those in opposition, please sit to the left. And we're ready. And how many of you are going to be speaking? How many? All of you? Okay, just a reminder that if people are saying the same thing, we don't have to hear the same thing, but if you have different things to add, certainly we want to hear from you. Okay. So please proceed with your presentation.
Good morning. I'm Neil Narayan's agent for 981 Dovercourt Road. I've spoken to some of the neighbors before we started today, and in light of some of their comments, I'd like to make an amendment to the proposition. It's listed as 1 dwelling unit plus 6 rooms, but would like to change that to 2 dwelling units plus 4 rooms. And actually, Neil had a change of use in 1992, so it's actually approved for 2 dwelling units already. I have the document here.
So you're wanting to amend the purpose?
Well, right now, it's 1 dwelling unit and 6 rooms.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's 1 dwelling unit plus rooming house, 6 rooms in the rooming house. But we'd like to say 2 dwelling units plus rooming house, only 4 rooms.
And you're saying in 1992, 2 dwelling units were approved?
That's correct.
Okay.
I have the document.
But the dwelling rooms are not?
No,
Okay.
no.
Purpose changes.
Yes.
So you would-
Still dwelling units plus rooming house, but the number,
Okay, but this is legalizing maintaining, so you would be
Yes.
changing, getting rid of 2 dwelling units.
No.
What impact, if any, is it on the variances?
None.
Okay, so you're just saying the purpose is incorrect?
Change.
Okay, but.
So you're basically saying that one of those rooms is really a dwelling unit, making it 2? Is that what you're saying?
The ground floor right now is a rooming house, and would want to make that a dwelling unit, an apartment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So physically,
Yes.
there is going to be a change.
Inside only?
Inside only.
No changes. No, no changes.
Madam Chair, what is there right now, floor by floor? How many rooms are on the first?
7 rooms. There's a dwelling unit in the basement, so that's an enclosed apartment.
Right.
And on the ground floor are 2 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And the second floor is 3 rooms.
That's fine.
Sorry, it's 2.5 stories. So the second and a half stories, 4 rooms total.
And now it's going to be a dwelling unit in the basement will remain?
That's correct.
Yes.
And the ground floor, a dwelling unit. And then the top 2.5 stories, rooming house, and that's just 4 rooms.
Right, so the 4 are existing on the top
Yes.
floor. The basement's existing.
That's
So
correct.
it's the main floor that's changing.
The main floor is actually existing. There's already a.
Right, but didn't you say there's 2 rooms there and you're changing it to 1 dwelling unit? Isn't that what-
My understanding of a dwelling unit means an apartment.
Right, yes. Isn't
Yes.
that what you said? That
Yes,
there's 2
but
rooms
not
on the main
room.
floor, and you want to change the purpose to a second dwelling unit on the main floor.
That's correct.
So does that change the plans we have?
No, not at all.
But the purpose changes.
Yes.
Well, instead of it being a dwelling unit on the ground floor, instead of it being a rooming house on the ground floor is a dwelling unit.
Right, so instead of calling it bedroom 1 and 2 with a communal kitchen, you're going to rent it as 1 unit?
Correct. That's
So
it.
the actual floor plan stays
The floor plan, nothing.
Okay,
Yes, all the
got it.
floor plans are the same.
Yep, got it.
Building envelope the same. Nothing is
Yeah,
changing.
okay.
Okay. All right, so proceed.
Yeah. Okay. There was also some concerns about the shed. There's an existing shed in the rear yard where the garbage is kept, and we understand that shed will need refurbishment.
So that's not a variance, that's before the board, is it?
The waste storage area.
Committee. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, waste storage area.
Ancillary, number 1.
So what's changing on that?
You're just going to
Nothing.
rebuild it. You're going to make it look nice.
Yes, correct.
But there's physically nothing's moving, shifting on the outside. Everything's on the inside related to the rooms, right?
Sorry?
Everything is on the inside mostly, other than the ancillary building.
When you say everything?
Well, there's no physical change.
No.
Other than you're going to fix up.
It needs a new door.
Okay, but that's.
And the landscaping is an existing condition?
Sorry?
Variance number 4.
Yes.
Is that an existing condition?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're just trying to.
Yes, correct.
As my colleague says, there's the changes, what be the purpose or other, are within the structure that exists now. You're not adding anything.
We're not adding anything, no.
Increasing the height.
No,
Not moving the walls.
No,
Yeah,
no.
okay.
Everything's
No.
existing.
Everything's existing.
No.
Except the GFA maybe because of this.
GFA changes because of the basement now. FSI is different.
I don't know.
I just want to make a point about that. So in the application, sorry, in the, in this, the notice, it's listed as 1.67 times, and I believe that's inaccurate because.
We have it at
the-
1.72.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, item number 3 is 1.72, and then item number.
Right. Under the old bylaw, it's 1.6.
Yeah, so it looks like when they did the calculations, they were adding. When they did the calculations, they were adding this space, which is actually not accessible. So this is the 2.5 story. So this is the 2.5 story.
So this is the roof?
What floor is this?
This is a 3rd story?
Well, it's 2.5.
So it's that angled part?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. So it looks like when they did the calculation with the GFA, they've added these 2 hatched areas, and those are inaccessible. It's not, in the front is not, technically, that's not a balcony, there's no door. There's no door to the back, there's no door to the front. So the GFA, or sorry, the floor space index is actually 1.31.
So are you amending it?
Well, no, they've
Okay.
they've done a miscalculation.
So what should we have here as a number?
My calculation is 1.31. 1.31. I have the CAD drawings.
Does he want to change it to 1.
Yeah, you should.
Are you asking for 1.72, or are you changing it to 1.
No, we are not asking for 1.72.
So you want 1.31, and you're prepared to have that discussion of interpretation with the building department?
Does that well, it's inaccessible area.
We are not the reviewers, so
Yes.
we didn't review it. Someone reviewed your plans and said
Yes.
it's 1.72.
Yes. I think that's a mistake.
Comes down.
Yeah, I'll show you the section.
But could it be, even though there isn't doors there, could it be expanded? Maybe that's why they're.
Oh, I see. We don't, that's not our proposition.
So you'll be prepared to change that?
1.31.
My only concern
1.31.
is that zoning examination calculates things using specific formulas. It would have been better to find out why their calculation was 1.72 rather
Yeah, I
than
see.
coming here and now saying that you think it's
Yeah, I
wrong.
see. I just, yeah, okay.
I would leave it as is.
Okay.
Well, we don't have any plans to change the existing envelope. We're trying to quote unquote legalize the rooming house. So we don't want to change the building at all.
So if it was the inclination of the committee to approve it, if that was the case, you'd be prepared to have it tied to plans so that was a certainty? Shows on the.
It's in the section too.
It's in the sectional drawing. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yes,
Is there anything-
yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before? we go from the-
Yes, a couple more points. The building is to code under Group C 3.2.247. Recently, within the last few years, a fire marshal came and inspected the building and approval was given to my client. Fire-rated doors were installed. So the building is to code. It is safe. It also provides to the community affordable housing. The rent in the basement is $700, and on top level, the units are $800. So there is much needed affordable housing to the City of Toronto. One-bedroom apartment today is $1,600.
Thank you.
Those are the only points, yes.
Thank you. Whoever else would like to speak, please come forward. Okay.
But I realized that the issue that I addressed in the letter were mainly addressed to but I'd like to start with first.
I know that waste management isn't something that the
Yes,
committee can.
yes. So actually what I'll be doing is using some of these photos to support some other arguments that I have. But first of all, to address that front of the house being inaccessible, actually argue that it is.
Your name, sorry, and address?
Anthony Songyi. I'm at 979 Dovercourt, just south of 981 Dovercourt. So I would argue that the front is actually accessible. The caretaker who lives there often has a garden, and he has this precarious wood structure actually that has been there for a number of months. That's.
Is that the roof?
That is the front of that slanted part. It's just like an overhang. It is an accessible balcony. So like I mentioned, I'll use some of these photos to talk about some of the issues. So this is, this is the area where the shed is actually located.
Okay, so you know that we can't talk about garbage, right?
Yes, yes, I won't be talking about that. The shed that is proposed is going to be located where that old shed is.
Yes.
I would argue that that's too close to the adjacent properties. The property to the north is a cafe with where food and beverage is consumed and shared. The property to the east, the top of the photo, is a single-family dwelling. And given what issues there are with waste management, I think it's likely to become an issue for the tenants and for the neighborhood. Secondly, regarding privacy and the fact that the windows on their property look directly into my dwelling. I'll have a photo for that. These are windows that on the second floor of the building, and the sliver on the left is my property, and those look directly into my property, and I have some other photos as well.
Okay, but those are no changes though, those exist. So there's not a variance being requested with respect to that.
That's correct, but I would argue that with the increased density and the increased number of tenants, that privacy will still be an issue for me. So that is the door that looks directly into my kitchen window, as well as the two windows that look directly into my bedroom and bathroom as well. Finally, a couple of pictures that I like to show related to how garbage would be handled in the front of the building. The area that is designated, so the 981 Dovercourt starts where that wall with the graffiti is, going outwards. And there's simply very often inadequate space for garbage to be placed properly. And oftentimes the caretaker of that building ends up putting garbage in front of my property. So this railing that white railing is part of my property, and very often garbage is left there. So related to waste disposal in the front, that has been an issue, and I can imagine with increased density that it'll be even a larger issue. Staying on this photo, I do believe that there's inadequate parking, and there's no parking space going to be provided for the space, as well as I believe there's inadequate bike parking. And the final argument that I'll present is that the soft landscaping between in the alleyway between our properties, they requested a variance for that. I do believe that that alleyway or that soft landscaping is inadequate. During the winter, it gets completely iced over, and I think it's actually a danger for an increased number of tenants to go through there. The basement apartment needs to be accessed to that alleyway, and with the amount of traffic that goes through there, I think it could be a danger as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Sir, did you have anything you wish to say?
My name is Frank Savazzi. I am the cleaner beside this room, 987, and my concern is the same. when you see the picture of all the garbage outside, we have the planter of the flower, and we planted, and after some people, they put all the garbage in top. So my concern is to be a better management and to keep the area better. And if he asks for an apartment, it's better than have a family than a roomy house, because they don't care when you are alone. So I am in favor if they accept apartment.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, could we have your response to the issues raised, please?
We appreciate that there's garbage on the property, and we do understand that the shed needs to be refurbished, and we hope to improve that. With Frank's comment, as I mentioned, we think the ground floor would be better as an apartment as opposed to a rooming house.
So what, with respect to the comments, with respect to the separation distances for the ancillary building, do you have any comments with respect to that?
Well, we can't, obviously we can't move the building. In that space, it's a bedroom, so we couldn't enclose the window. We need a window.
Ancillary building.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
The shed. You're asking for variances with respect from the lot lines.
Oh, yes.
And there was a comment with respect to that.
Yeah.
Just wanted your response.
I thought you were refurbishing it and not, are you making it bigger? Or is it still?
No, we're not. No, there's no intention to make it bigger.
Is that where you said you're putting a new door on, or were you talking about the house?
No, the shed. Yeah, a new door on the shed.
Rebuild it on its existing footprint?
Or just fix it?
No, it just needs a door.
It just needs a door?
It needs a door, and it needs to be refurbished.
So the rear waste storage then, how's that gonna, is that gonna sit somewhere facing these people? Is it gonna be covered, or what are you doing? How are you doing this?
Well, the bins would be in the shed.
In the shed.
Yeah, and enclosed.
And so they're not in the shed now because?
I don't know why they're not in the shed now. There were some tenants there on the ground floor who have been evicted, and it's taken my client some time to get them evicted, and we hope that the problem improves.
Is the size of the shed sufficient to contain
yes.
garbage generated?
Yes, I believe so. It's
Supposed to be generated by
yes, it's
number of
fairly
units?
substantial. Yes.
What's the size of that shed? The footprint. Okay.
It's approximately like 4 by 5 meters.
4 by 5 meters?
Yes. Square. Anthony, you might have a better idea of how big it is.
To be honest, if it's going to be refurbished, then I would argue that this site plan is this existing shed is here, then I would argue that page 5 of the photos that I included does not match the site plan.
Okay, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No. No, I see the photo here. This is helpful. If we cannot fit the bins in there, then we would have to improve the size of the shed. Yes.
That may have to.
Sure, yes.
You may need additional approvals with respect to that.
Okay.
I have no idea. That's something that would be for you to determine. Okay, any further information?
No, that's it for me.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So in committee, discussion or motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm very sympathetic to the neighbors. I actually live a little bit of the same situation. Unfortunately, this committee does not deal with garbage and issues that either go through property standards bylaws. I would suggest you call them if there are issues, particularly on the city boulevard. Having said that, with respect to the actual variances, these are all existing conditions. It's really, we're talking about the interior here. I don't think that what's being proposed is unreasonable. There are no variances for a rooming house because it's permitted, so the rooms are permitted. The 2 dwelling units were approved back in 1992 by Committee of Adjustment. So I would be prepared to move approval. And just as another side note, the structure next door at the rear is very similar in size to the shed that's at the rear of this property. So I would be prepared to move approval, as I feel that this meets the 4 tests that the committee looks at.
I do agree on the issue of the garbage. I'm just concerned that there's no clarity on there would need to be a change in the site plan, or if there's a site plan application. Give me some difficulties about. I know the applicant wants to put on a door, make things different, but by simply making those changes, we will end up with the need for a new site plan. I wonder if this matter should be dealing with. We should be dealing with it.
Well, there are no variances. Like, as I understand it, we're talking about improving the look of the shed, another door, maybe better cladding, and if they can't fit the garbage cans in and they decide that they're going to expand the structure, they're going to have to come back to committee. So and as far as the purpose, it doesn't change anything in the documents that we have.
Property standards issues are real ones, but they're not ones that the committee can deal with. But we certainly encourage property owners to ensure that they respect the interests and the rights of their neighbors and keep their property. Well, even if it is rented out, if you're absent, you still have the responsibility to ensure your property is maintained. But we can't rule on the garbage issue.
So anyway, I'll try my motion, which is to, as I said before, it meets the 4 tests based on everything I said earlier. I would move approval of the application.
The amended purpose?
With the amended purpose, changing it to 2 dwelling units and 4 dwelling rooms inside the 2.5-story detached dwelling.
Is there a seconder?
I guess I can second that with reservation.
All in favor? Your application is approved as amended.
Thank you.
Okay, item 15, 87 Boulton Drive. Committee has before it a copy of plan of survey, site plan, floor plans and elevations, email correspondence from the assistant planner, community planning, city planning, Toronto Historic District, and a staff report from the acting supervisor, tree protection and plan review. Where's the objector?
Oh, so yeah, the objector was something actually not even related to. He was more concerned with the lot lines and where his
where his lot would end in terms of like the survey, which the information we didn't have, so.
Okay, all right. Your name, please?
So my name is Nevin Parr. I'm acting as the agent on behalf of Parr Design.
Okay. Panel members need a presentation or just questions? Okay, any questions?
And variance number 2, you need a sidewall, exterior wall of 8.93 meters. What is the at present moment?
Right.
Or you haven't constructed anything yet?
The front wall or the side wall?
Side wall.
New build.
Side wall.
Why do you need 8.93 meters?
I don't really understand the question, sorry.
The side, you're asking for a variance?
Yes.
For the wall height?
Yes. Actually, I think that this would relate, so it's 7.5 meters, so it would relate to the height being 8.93 meters.
Yes.
Which is because of just the shape of the...
You're basically having a flat roof?
Well, no, it's not a flat roof. It's just the protruding, because it's more of like a modern design where the front is protruding outwards.
But it's not a gabled roof?
No, no.
I just have a question. I'm just looking at an email exchange between you and the planner. It says, thank you for making these changes. Well, what did you change?
Yeah, so I think the initial design was, right, the roof was a bit like lowered. And so now we just like raised it a little bit just to match kind of the soften the look that they were looking for. And
So
that
you reduced the height already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And they were pleased with.
So is there other properties in the neighborhood that have the height that you're requesting? Sidewall height? And these.
The sidewall height, you know, I wouldn't know. This house is. Well, I mean, we just went by everything that the city planner was saying, and they approved all the different points.
I see. So you didn't bring any evidence to back up anything?
Well, the only evidence I have is in terms of the FSI. Yeah, that there's a house down the street. It's a, let me just pull it up. It's actually going to committee right now. And it has the ratio of 1.5, you're allowed 1. And it's a...
No, that's not FSI. FSI is 0.35, and you're looking for 0.75.
Right, okay, so yes, there's a house, 38 Boulton, and it's a 2-story semi-detached house, and they have, the altered 3-story detached house will have a floor space index equal to 1.5 times the area of the lot, and it's allowed 1.0 times the area of the lot. So that's one example.
Semi. That's a semi.
Right.
So detached?
Okay. Well, you know, like I said, we're really just we were working heavily with the city planner.
So just from your observations in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Is there any other properties in the neighborhood that you think that you could point out to the committee are similar in size and massing that you're asking for? Provide us with addresses or just, you're not giving
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm an agent I didn't work on this project.
But okay.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be an issue.
You're not giving us any information.
Okay, I thought you have everything there that you need to make
There's no report from the planning department other than thanks for making your changes.
Okay.
The responsibility is on the applicant to demonstrate to the committee that what they're asking us for is appropriate, minor, and within the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan.
Yeah.
So it's the onus is on you as the applicant to bring information to us to support your request.
Okay.
So some of these questions we're asking you is, even if you don't, didn't know.
No, yeah, this is not my project.
Even if it just your knowledge of the neighborhood, is there anything similar to this in size and in height?
I'm I wouldn't know.
Why would you need the next one I would ask is the width of your driveway. How many others in the neighborhood have the width of a driveway that's wide? Well, the city bylaw requires only 3.2 meters. You want 4.88 meters.
Well, I mean,
how many others?
Yeah.
Nothing. You don't have anything for us to justify. Okay. Because your job is to justify your.
Right.
Basically, you have to give reasons why we should approve it.
Yeah.
You're telling us nothing, so we don't know if the information you're giving us, you're not giving us anything. Whether it meets the test within the neighborhood or what. It's not for although we look on some of these things, sometimes we want to get to hear from the applicant what's there.
I mean, but the information that I have is that everything was worked side by side. I thought you would have more information from the city planner, and they wanted, this particular design of the house and.
Yeah, it's not the city planner's responsibility. It's your responsibility. Okay. All right.
Can I then ask for a deferral to come back with a stronger argument?
No. Well, you could ask, but I'm not sure the committee would grant it.
Okay. Can we do something here?
I think.
Please?
Look.
I don't want to make your case for you. This is, yeah.
Okay, so are you asking for deferral?
I'm asking to come back with a stronger argument. I didn't think that, I've been to many of these committee of adjustment things. It's just, if the work was done with the city planner, you guys have the evidence that everything was followed, and it's not something.
I have my research, but generally speaking, when an applicant presents, we expect them to have some information, which I understand you weren't prepared.
Yeah.
From my perspective, if you're asking for a deferral, I would not support it, just because there's really no real grounds for it other than that you weren't prepared. So, okay, so that would be my position. I'm not sure how my colleagues feel, because I think we should deal with this today.
Yeah, I think we should deal with it as well.
Okay.
Okay. So if we're in committee.
Yep.
All right. So through you, Madam Chair, from what I could see, there are several new homes in the area. Several of them have integral garages. There's also a flat roof home. Even though we don't have the numbers, I would suspect that they are probably in keeping with the FSI that's being proposed.
There's also some larger homes from a footprint perspective on the lot.
So I would be inclined to support the application and including forestry conditions 2 and 3. So if there are no more comments, that would be my motion.
I have a seconder.
Not supported. I think my applicant should have done a little bit some work on it. Applicant wasn't prepared. Absolutely not prepared.
Okay, so you're not seconding?
I'm not seconding.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor? Okay. Your application is
Abstain?
approved? No.
No.
I vote.
Dissented.
You seconded, you dissent.
Okay, in future though?
Yes, absolutely.
Seriously.
Okay.
The onus is on you. It's not on us.
Yeah.
If we hadn't sat here and done our own research, as we do.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not my job to make your case for you.
Absolutely. I thank you.
And
I apologize for that. I didn't.
As a side note, generally speaking, if we get reports from planning, it's for conditions or for refusals or deferrals. It's not to defend your application.
Okay, it won't happen again.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Okay, the morning session is adjourned at 12:54.
OMG. Okay. Well, so much for you.
All right. I'm just going to stop.
I hate